sure that you're being very prudent but wise in your expansion. What is Los Angeles? How does Los Angeles itself or the surrounding area benefit from it?
Well, of course, Los Angeles is a city which has a significant pollution problem. And I think the simple way that it would benefit is that it will make solar energy, which is a big initiative in Los Angeles, much more viable. Right now, solar energy without the use of a storage facility is just not viable.
All right. Everybody's talking now these days about what we should do about the economy. Barack Obama, is he moving too fast? Is he taking on too much? And part of this is the expansion into energy and the jobs that can be created there. Give us your long-term view of the economy, Bill. Where are we going? Do we bury our head under the covers, or is there a sense of optimism on your part?
Well, I will tell you this. I ran for 10 years the largest economic forecasting company in the world. And I can tell you it's a humbling experience. And I've learned to know what I don't know. And one thing that I can tell you for sure is that no one can accurately predict with certainty the outcome of an unprecedented event. And we are in unprecedented waters right now. That said, my optimism comes from the fact that although the meltdown was so jarring, it happened over a period of weeks, and as opposed to, for example, the Great Depression, which happened over a period of years. And my optimism and my study of history tells me that the reason it happened so quickly is that the global economy is linked in a way that it was never linked in the 1930s. And if it was able to deteriorate that quickly, it could also restart as quickly.
Of course, coming back quickly means the United States and people who do business here have to understand the whole global picture. Let's talk about your global view. You recently were invited to go to Nigeria. In fact, the only LA businessman in this community to do so, right?
Yes.
What did you talk about? Why did you go there? What was discussed?
Well, the topic of the conference was how to eliminate poverty in Africa. And what I talked about, they say that financial crises are the mother of all inventions. Mm-hmm. And my message to the audience, which was primarily Africans, was that they needed to use this financial crisis as an opportunity to put their house in orders. One thing is for sure, in the short term, Africa can no longer count on the kindness of strangers. There just isn't any money going to Africa right now. All the aid has been cut off dramatically. Mm-hmm. And so my message to them was that this can be a blessing, actually, a blessing in disguise. I think you need to remember two things. One is that the Western world didn't get rich by aid, and instead it got rich by financing entrepreneurs. And secondly, pockets of the West, notwithstanding substantial aid, failed miserably.
How do you get a section of the world or a part of the world not used to Western ways in terms of finance? How do you get them changed to accept our way of doing business?
I think what I have seen in the last 2 years of traveling throughout Africa is that there is a new breed of African entrepreneur out there that has bootstrapped their businesses. Basically, without any capital, they've created businesses. And I think if they could have access to small amounts of capital, venture capital, the way we do here in the United States, I think you would see an enormous cultural change in Africa. And I think you're starting to see that already.
Where does the money come from, within or without?
The money thus far has come from the sovereign wealth funds. China is one of the largest investors, and they've been an early investor in Africa. And they are funding large infrastructure projects, And they're also looking at, and one of the things that I'm doing is creating a bank in Africa that will be the first entrepreneurs bank of Africa that will lend to small and mid-sized businesses which have been completely starved of capital up to this point.
All right, we know now that America is no longer an island of business. It has to do business with everybody, and what happens over there affects here, and what happens here affects over there. What did you see in Nigeria, or experience in Nigeria, that is eventually going to affect Los Angeles?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it comes down to access to capital. You look at portions of Los Angeles, like South Los Angeles, which are economically depressed zones. And I think one of the ways to change that is really the same way that you change Africa. You bet on entrepreneurs. They may not always have the education credentials. They may not have track records, but they have good ideas. They've got good instincts, and you need to start betting on people like that. When you do that, you're going to see a complete sea change in the level of economic activity in those areas. And one other thing I would just say is that the perception of risk in the world has changed. We lived in a world over the last decade where we thought a lot of things we were investing in weren't risky. Today, investments in Africa and South Los Angeles, on a relative basis, don't look as risky.
Interesting. Let's end this with a little philosophy, your own business philosophy. You know, I've often heard that success in business has to be tied to a sense of ruthlessness. But, you know, I sense in you success in business with a tinge of compassion, especially the way you see Africa and other nations taking part in the world economy.
You know, I'm very fortunate that I'm in a position right now that I can focus my energies and my activities on things that I'm passionate about. And one of the lessons that I learned a long time ago is to achieve, for my own happiness, to achieve real happiness, one has to do more than just meet a bottom line and make money. One has to have a profound impact on people's lives. That's the way you create a legacy. And in Africa, that legacy will be taking, you know, a continent where 80% of the people don't have electricity and turning that and allowing that energy economy to completely bypass the carbon economy and not deal with all of the pollution and environmental issues we have here. And secondly, Africa is today 80% unbanked. And I want to create banking institutions there that are going to create the basis to create an entrepreneurial revolution over there.
Are there enough people in this country, and I'm talking about business people, business-minded people, who share your vision?
I think there are, and I think that there are perhaps fewer pioneers, fewer people who are willing to be the first to go in. But I think when you lead the way and you show that the businesses are viable, I think there are hordes of people who have interest in it. I can't even begin to tell you the level of interest I get as I go across this country, the United States, and talk about the projects we're doing in Africa.
Is there going to be an amalgamation between your bank and your energy company over there, do you think?
I think they're separate. They're separate businesses, and they're designed to do separate things. But one thing's for sure, the bank that we create over there and the banks we create over there will fund new clean energy projects way beyond ZBB Energy.
Mm-hmm. All right, Bill Mundell, thank you very much. You are a pioneer. You do see things other people don't see, and we wish you great luck, not only for your own personal welfare, but for all the rest of us. Because, again, what you do is going to affect a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, I thank you, Bob. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Bill. What a vision and a hope, eliminating the carbon footprint in both Africa and China.
There you have it, a Facebook for political hopefuls storing electricity in green energies. Los Angeles business is taking the lead on some of the most significant issues of our times.
You know, it might not be a matter of how President Obama is rated by leading economists on the Wall Street Journal. In this crisis, it appears to be more about what individuals are doing to fight the despair and cynicism that continues to afflict our economy.
Thank you for joining us on LA Business Today. I'm Sharon Jimenez.
And I'm Bob Jimenez. We'll see you again next time.
Moving is who we are, inside and out. We breathe in so that we can breathe out, so that we can breathe in again. We dream, awake and asleep. We laugh. We talk with our hands. We give it a whirl. We become. We move, our bodies and minds in constant conversation. And no matter how much we do it, it's never enough. We know this to the core, that as long as we are breathing, there is moving to be done. Multiple sclerosis stops people from moving. People with MS understand something about moving that is hard for most of us to comprehend. That moving is not a guarantee.
MS is a disease that damages myelin, the protective tissue that surrounds the nerve fibers of the brain and spinal cord. When a person has MS, myelin is lost, and that leaves behind scar tissue called sclerosis.
The scar tissue disrupts the electrical impulses that move information from the brain to the body and makes movement difficult.
No one knows what causes MS, and there is no cure. The effects of MS are unpredictable and show up in different ways in different people. One person may experience memory loss and fatigue, while another may suddenly lose the ability to see.
Someone might lose their balance and have trouble walking, while another may have slurred speech and tremors.
For some, the symptoms of MS come and go. In others, they last forever.
The National Multiple Sclerosis Society is a collective of passionate individuals united by a common goal to address the challenges of each person whose life is affected by MS. National MS Society leads these initiatives because we believe that moving is not just something you can or can't do, but rather is who you are. That if you are alive, you are connected to the potential, the hope, the momentum of it all. You move along with, because of, and in spite of the great big turning world.
Hi, I'm Scott Smith. I live in LA. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, Our City, Our Channel.
A very good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Friday, February 26, 2010. We're here in the John Farrow Council Chambers, so room 340 of City Hall. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday normally, although we've been meeting every day during this budget deliberations period. And today is Friday, and like all Fridays, we have a series of presentations to notable individuals and to mark important dates in California and in Los Angeles, which we will be commencing with shortly. But I wanted to thank those council members who are here on time. Council members Cardenas, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, and Smith. We do have a couple excuses on the desk. Mr. Huizar and Mr. Reyes are excused. Mr. Zine is excused to arrive late, but otherwise we are expecting everybody else here. So Councilmember Alarcon, Councilmember Hahn, Councilmember Rosendahl, if you will please join us as soon as possible. And I want to thank Mr. Wesson for being here as well. We are broadcast live on Channel 35, and we welcome our viewers throughout the city's cable system. We're also available through two other media, through your computer at lacity.org. You can go and catch live streaming webcasts of our council meetings and any of our committee meetings as well that are archived in the audio portion there. We also are available through your telephone if you call into Council Phone, which is a service through your telephone to listen to our council and committee meetings. That number is 213-621-CITY. Our agendas are available online 72 hours in advance or in person through our city's clerk's office or here in council chambers 24 hours in advance for our special meeting agendas. If you'd like to be heard on any of the items that have not yet had a public hearing, please fill out a speaker card here or in one of our two remote locations in San Pedro and Van Nuys City Halls. Those are places which we can watch you remotely from here, and any items that have not yet had a public hearing will automatically be triggered by your card. Items that have had public hearings in committee require a council member to reopen those public hearings to be heard again and a majority vote of the council. And we also have a section for general public comment for items that are not on our agenda today, but nevertheless of concern and under our jurisdiction. And folks can speak from the podium here. There's a clock there to help guide your time and a code of conduct as well to help guide your behavior as we are hearing your testimony. We do now have 10 members. Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, Huizar, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Labange moves, Mr. Smith seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Koretz moves and Mr. Cardenas seconds. Without objection, those will be approved as well. We can run through the agenda, please.
Items 1 through 28 are items for which public hearings have been held. There is a request to continue item 20 to April 9th and item 27 to March 5th.
Is there any objection, colleagues, to continuing 20 till the 9th of April and 27 to the 5th of March? Seeing none, we'll continue those.
And item 1 is a commission appointment. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Yes, please. Let's hold the commission appointment on the desk. Are there specials, Mr. Cardenas and Ms. Hahn?
Number 3, so we can make a little noise on item number 3.
Okay. Mr. Cardenas calls number 3 special, and Ms. Hahn?
22.
22 for Ms. Hahn. Any other special items?
24 verbal.
Verbal what?
Verbal amendment.
Oh, you have an amendment? You want to make it?
Yeah, basically.
Go ahead.
I move that the explore the feasibility in the interest of energy saving laser light operational. If you've been on an escalator, I'm going to go on. I got to call it special.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll call it special.
Which item?
24 for Mr. Labange. Nobody, Mr. Parks?
Yes, could we have number 6 special, and then on 28, we'd like to move the HCED report with instructions to Housing Department to follow the guidance of the city attorney regarding outreach contracts and the potential conflict of interest on the operational process.
Okay. Mr. Wesson?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I want to do, but it is my understanding that Mr. Zine wanted to call this special, so I will give him that professional courtesy, but at the end of our discussion, I'm guardedly optimistic that we will move the HED report where it relates to this item.
Great, we'll call that special as well. Any other special items, colleagues? If not, let's go ahead and please, let's hold 2 on the desk as well, since that's an ordinance and we do expect 12 members. If we can take up the balance, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Can I have the next items, please?
Items 29 through 41 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. And on item 29, a community impact statement has been submitted and distributed, and that is from the Glassell Park Neighborhood Council.
Thank you. Any members wishing to call any of these items special? Do we have cards on any of these?
There are cards on items 29 and 32.
Thank you.
32.
All those special for cards from the public. Other specials, colleagues? We'll open and close the other public hearings. 32 for Ms. Hahn as well. Seeing no others, let's go ahead and take up the balance. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items 42 and 43 are closed session items. Do you wish to hold those items on the desk?
Yes, please. Let's hold the closed session items on the desk and go to the next item. Mr. Parks?
Yes, on 43, it's a routine settlement between a business and the Department of Finance. In fact, this settlement will save the city about $15,000. And if there's no questions, I think we can handle that in open session.
Okay. Nobody wishes to hear that. Let's go ahead and move the recommendation then.
And for clarification on item 43, there is a recommendation for settlement in which the city agrees to refund DTG Operations Incorporated the sum of $172,000, $127.54 for overpayment of business tax in the case of DTG Operations Inc. versus City.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move that recommendation. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that is approved.
And on the continuation agenda, item 44 is a building and safety lien notice for public hearing.
Okay, we do not have any cards from the public on that. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Anybody wishing to call 44 special? Seeing none, let's go ahead and prepare the roll, and please tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved. We are still awaiting Mr. Rosendahl. If he will please make his way to chambers. He is late. But otherwise, we do have everybody else here. We'll be able to take up item 2 when he arrives. Let's go ahead and just before our presentation, take up item 1 so our commissioner can be heard. I'd like to recognize Mr. Labange for item number 1, which is Ms. Chu here? She's not here? Okay. Let's hold that on the desk then. Mr. Labange?
You met her, I believe. Members, I recommend we approve this mayor's appointee. She was in committee. She does have great skills. Unfortunately, her schedule could not allow her to be here, but I will tell you she is going to make a good contribution. So if that's okay with you, Mr. President and members, I say and I vote. You can take my word, Ms. Hahn.
He's saying, trust me, Ms. Hahn. Trust me.
No, I don't say trust me. I say you take my word. Have I ever steered you wrong, Ms. Hahn? Have I ever steered you wrong?
With that ringing endorsement, let's go ahead then and prepare the roll on the nomination and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
All right. That is approved. Thank you. We'll now go to our presentations. I'd like to recognize Council Member Tony Cardenas from the 6th District for our first presentation today.
I'd like to invite up council members, ladies and gentlemen, our own Los Angeles Animal Cruelty Task Force. These wonderful men and women have really brought a shining light on cruelty to animals in this city, so much so that in a few minutes you'll see how popular they're becoming around the country. Again, today we want to talk about the premiere of the Animal Planet's Los Angeles Animal Cruelty Task Force. And behind me are various men and women who are part of that task force. In a few minutes you'll hear from some of their top brass. And I want to congratulate our Animal Cruelty Task Force on their premiere of LA Task Force, which premiered in January of this year on Animal Planet. And the city was approached on June 2008 by the Animal Planet Network for a pilot episode because they already have this show ongoing across the country on their network. And the pilot episode aired on January 18, 2010. And at this time, if we could roll the tape, we'll let you get a glimpse of what it's like.
The creation of the task force is a story in itself. In 2004, Councilman Tony Cardenas was at home with his kids watching Animal Planet when a show featuring animal cops across the country got his attention.
And then I said to myself, wow, I can't wait to see when they cover the city of Los Angeles.
But to his surprise, the second largest city in the country didn't have an animal investigative unit. But that changed in 2005 when he passed a motion in council that mobilized the city's first animal cruelty task force.
In 2005, the Los Angeles Police Department set up a specialist squad to deal with the growing number of crimes against animals.
There is a correlation between people that abuse animals and people that commit crimes of domestic violence and also child abuse.
Since becoming operational, this small but highly trained unit has investigated over 1,000 cases and made more than 150 arrests. These are the officers of the Los Angeles Animal Cruelty Task Force.
Hey! First one, get your hands up right now! See your hands! See your hands! Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands!
Lead to Hollywood, what is Hollywood? And also, ladies and gentlemen, I think you're experiencing what it's like with some of our cutbacks. We're getting some of the bugs out. Now that we have no sound, we have some picture, so... Yeah. Maybe we'll play it at the end of the presentation. Maybe. Maybe we'll play it at the end of the presentation. Well, council members, one thing that I'd like to point out, and one thing that I hope the public can appreciate, when you elect people to office, you're electing human beings. You're electing people who have the opportunity to go ahead and put forth policies, hopefully good policies, that will improve the life and the livelihood of our constituents. This idea of an animal cruelty task force came to me one night when I was watching television with my children, and after episode or over a few months, I was starting to get a little frustrated because I was telling my kids how proud I was going to be to see the city of Los Angeles on the Animal Planet show, because they were showing Houston and they were showing New York and Chicago and all these wonderful cities, and I just assumed that the city of Los Angeles had an animal cruelty task force. Well, being a councilman, I came in and I asked the Animal Services Department of the City of Los Angeles, I said, when did they film us? When am I going to see us on television? And they said, doing what? And I said, don't we have an Animal Cruelty Task Force? And they said, no, we don't have one, nor have we ever had one. So immediately I talked to them and asked them if we should have one, and they said, absolutely, we should have one. But they told me, well, with all due respect, council member, that's a policy decision of the council. That's not up to the department to create it themselves. So we got together with the Animal Services Department, with the Police Department, and various organizations, and I had help from my good friend Cesar Milan, who said, you all need to do this. So as a result of that, in 2005, this Animal Cruelty Task Force was formed by the City of Los Angeles. And between the animal abuse and human violence, there's a connection. And this Animal Cruelty Task Force just doesn't go out there to look at crime issues. They also educate the public as well. And I'd like to thank the collaboration of various departments and organizations such as the Los Angeles Animal Services Department, the Los Angeles Police Department, the LA City Attorney's Office, the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health, some local veterinarians, volunteers, and also our Los Angeles DA's office as well. And through their wonderful work, since then, since the creation, they have investigated over 1,000 animal cruelty cases. And they filed 841 felony cases, 118 misdemeanor cases. They've served over 55 search warrants and made 195 arrests. These cases involving these men and women are oftentimes very disturbing cases. And I'll tell you, it really is difficult sometimes to just hear the stories that these men and women are having to deal with when it comes to the cruelty that they're finding out in our community of Los Angeles. And for those of you who would like to report animal cruelty, these men and women are ready to go out there and investigate those reports. You can call them at 213-847-1417. So on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, I'd like to thank the Animal Cruelty Task Force for all of their hard work, for continually providing education to residents on the areas of animal cruelty, animal neglect, animal hoarding, and animal fighting crimes, and for animal fighting games, and for constantly seeking new and innovative strategies to identify animal abusers throughout Los Angeles. And one of the things that I knew was going to happen, and I'm proud to report, I knew that as soon as we created an animal cruelty task force in the City of Los Angeles, it was going to become perhaps the premier, best public service animal cruelty task force in the country. So much so, when Animal Planet came to us in 2005, they were just looking to perhaps film one episode and put it in the repertoire of episodes that they show around the country. They were so impressed with our sophistication and our success in the City of Los Angeles. The pilot program that aired in January, just last month, actually is a premiere to see if they will have their own year-long episodes just for the City of Los Angeles. They were so impressed that they felt that the City of Los Angeles could and would sustain their own episodes without having to share the limelight with the rest of the country. So with that, until I get a high sign that we're okay with the audio, I'll go ahead and introduce Kathy Davis. She's our interim general manager of the Los Angeles Animal Services Department. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Cardenas. President Garcetti, council members, Councilman Cardenas, we thank you very much for this honor. We're exceptionally happy with the pilot that was produced by Animal Planet. It clearly and compassionately demonstrates the amazing work performed every single day by our outstanding Animal Cruelty Task Force. Each case depicted in the pilot fully illustrates the difficult challenges and the remarkable success of this program. LA is truly fortunate to have this concept and this incredible collection of dedicated personnel who work in harmony in defense of our pets. We commend their hard work. We commend Animal Planet for capturing the heart and soul of their mission, and we look forward to a future series that will continue to highlight their amazing activities. Council members, we deeply appreciate your initiation and continued support of our Animal Cruelty Task Force, and we look forward to their future success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kathy. Next, I'll invite up Lieutenant Paul Wilson from ACTF. Thank you.
These are unprepared remarks, but thank you, Councilman Cardenas, members of the council, the mayor. I can't say too much. I've only been here a few months, but I really do appreciate having joined a coveted unit like this. It's been exciting, and it was hard for me to understand that animal crimes are crimes. Even our own officers sometimes have difficulties understanding that a crime against an animal is a serious matter. And so that's one of the things I learned. We do a lot of cases here. Like Councilor Cardenas said, over 1,000 cases. This year we had around 250 search warrants, arrests. We are a law enforcement unit, and we really appreciate the support of Councilman Cardenas in setting up the unit and allowing us to continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before we roll the tape, it looks like we're good. I'll bring Sue up after, because then you'll know what she does and you'll see her in action. So before we roll the tape, I also want to remind us we should be proud of ourselves, council members, because before we created the Animal Cruelty Task Force in LA County as a whole, in the county of Los Angeles, the largest county in the country, we had not prosecuted one felony. We neglected to prosecute at least one felony in over 20 years. And now we've prosecuted close to 200 individuals. So with that, if we can roll the tape, let's give it another shot.
The creation of the task force is a story in itself. In 2004, Councilman Tony Cardenas was at home with his kids watching Animal Planet when a show featuring animal cops across the country got his attention.
And then I said to myself, wow, I can't wait to see when they cover the city of Los Angeles.
But to his surprise, the second largest city in the country didn't have an animal investigative unit. But that changed in 2005 when he passed a motion in council that mobilized the city's first animal cruelty task force.
In 2005, the Los Angeles Police Department set up a specialist squad to deal with the growing number of crimes against animals.
There is a correlation between people that abuse animals and people that commit crimes of domestic violence and also child abuse.
Since becoming operational, this small but highly trained unit has investigated over 1,000 cases and made more than 150 arrests. These are the officers of the Los Angeles Animal Cruelty Task Force.
Hey! Search warrant, get your hands up right now! Where are you at? See your hands! See your hands! Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands!
Put your hands on your head. Walk out.
Get your hands up! Get your hands up! Get your hands up! Get off me! My God!
The goal of our city is to be on the forefront of a safe haven for animals. That's the goal of Los Angeles City, and if the LAPD can be a big part of that, we're there.
3 detectives, 2 police officers, and 1 animal control officer united in the fight against animal cruelty.
Ladies and gentlemen, those are not actors. Those are real scenes from the streets of Los Angeles. No animals were hurt or injured in the making of these films. And in addition to that, I don't know how they perfected it so quickly, but I don't know how they do that really cool walk that you saw. I was hoping they'd demonstrate for us today, but I guess they weren't able to. So with that, we'd like to invite up one of our premier individuals and someone who certainly makes a wonderful spokesperson for the group, and that's Detective Sue Birmingham. Sue.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Council. Thank you. That's really cool. Thank you, Councilman Cardenas, for honoring us today and for creating the Animal Cruelty Task Force. This pilot episode gives us just a glimpse of what we do every day on behalf of the City of Los Angeles. What you see before you could not have been made possible if it wasn't for the Department of Animal Services, the LAPD, the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, and the LA County District Attorney's Office. We thank you all for your dedication and commitment to this task force. The partnerships we have established here is a model that is emulated throughout other municipalities across the country. Not one of our accomplishments could have ever been achieved without Councilman Cardenas' vision, his staff, and the approval of this City Council. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sue. As you can see, they make law enforcement look really cool. But the beautiful part about it is, let's not forget that they're prosecuting hundreds of cases now because of this Animal Cruelty Task Force, and I have 2 resolutions to give to them, and this is to the LA Task Force and to LAPD. And then this is to laws, as we call it. And again, this is the least we can do to thank them for making Los Angeles 1,000 times safer today than it was 5 years ago before we had this task force. And I know a lot of us, Paul Koretz and Herb Wesson, as we try to care for one animal at a time and all the endeavors we do in our district and here on the council floor, as you, Herb, make sure that we remind people to adopt the animals so that we don't have to euthanize them. It's really important for us to understand that this task force is really making a difference, and more importantly, they're doing perhaps the best job of any task force in the country, and we should be very, very proud of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Cardenas?
Ms. Hahn would like to say a few words.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, good job, Tony. And I know this has been a real passion for you. You are certainly an angel in the City of Angels that really cares about our animals. And if you've had a number of ordinances and passions and projects that looks to really save our animals. And this morning, this makes it just so relevant. This morning, there was a terrible article on the front page of one of our local papers, the Daily Breeze, where a girlfriend in I believe, Hawthorne, took her boyfriend's puppy and threw it into the street. And it was killed by a car. And it just makes you feel so badly that there are actually people out there who, if you could only get to them before that happens, if you could only get tips, or people could say, hey, I think there's a problem with how this person is treating an animal, if we can only prevent what that does, because it makes us, as a society, just, it really lowers everybody when instances like that happens, because I think at the end we are going to be judged on how we treat the creatures of the earth and how we respect, the least of these, and certainly our animals, our vulnerable animals can be that. So this is so important. That video is very cool. Congratulations to your staff. Did a great job working on that. But we hope you get to these folks before they cause harm on our animals. So thank you, and that's the kind of city we want to be. Even in tough economic times, that's still how we want to behave as a city, that we have respect for everyone that we share this planet with.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. And Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, just a quick shout out to you. Obviously, everybody who connects with animals, be they dogs or cats or rabbits or you name it, it's just outrageous. And so whatever we can do to prosecute people that do that kind of harm, they have, believe it or not, animals do have spirits, and they are a real connection to the world, to us. And they should be treated with that dignity and respect. And anybody who abuses them should have the full extent of the law. So thank you all for doing what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Lamonge.
Mr. Cardenas, thank you, and Los Angeles police officers and Animal Services. It's a team. And the great thing about our city is when we team up and get a better focus on an issue and do make a consolidated change in the horrible incidents of cruelty to animals. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you very much. And I think to highlight the first case, the first conviction that they got after creating the Animal Cruelty Task Force was on a man who had only served a few months' time when he had some charges pressed against him when he got into a tussle with some police officers. And then later on, they caught him in an animal cruelty case, and he was convicted, and he's doing up to 3 years in state prison for animal cruelty. So once again, this is a great opportunity for us to enforce the laws that and protect animals, yet at the same time, they're doing tremendous work to make sure that law-abiding citizens remain so. And the show, I think, is going to be a great deterrent. People are going to understand, perhaps for 20 years, there were no felony cases filed for animal cruelty. Not anymore. Those days are over. We're going to be a safer city for our animals thanks to these men and women. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas, and thank you to the LAPD and the Animal Services Department. You make us all very proud. Thank you. For a special presentation, Ms. Perry.
Let's go this way. Take some pictures.
Ms. Perry.
Mr. Chair, as President goes to the lectern, I have the honor of introducing the Minister of Tourism and Transportation of Aruba, the Honorable Otmar Obuder.
That's right.
And he is here in Los Angeles to promote the first Aruba International Film Festival, which will be held in Aruba from June 4th through the 11th, 2010. So just let's give him a hand and welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our chambers. Mr. Garcetti for a presentation.
Is there anybody from City here in the house? Well, somebody come up here and join me. Come on.
Mr. Holden will do that if you need.
Yeah, Mr. Holden. Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's a great joy to be here before you today to celebrate some of the finest young public servants in this country. Those who participate, you've seen them in the community, in schools, on the streets, doing calisthenics here in front of City Hall. Their energy, their enthusiasm, their focus, and their commitment are all part of what we know as City Year. City Year unites young people of all backgrounds for a demanding year of full-time service, giving them the skills and opportunities to change the world while they change the world around them. And here in Los Angeles, 150 City Year Corps members who we see here today. Some of them are taking pictures, some of them are standing here, some of them are sitting there. But they are serving as tutors, as mentors, as role models. They're leading after-school programs. They're revitalizing neighborhood spaces. With its focus on attendance, behavior, and course performance, City Year has taken on the challenge of reducing the dropout rate and closing the achievement gap among students in Los Angeles. We know that we need the sort of wraparound services that will allow a young person not to be handed off from one government to the next, from one program to the next, but to have a seamless existence and a bright future. By June 2010 of this year, City Year Los Angeles will have served over 1,465 students who were falling off the track to graduation, and they engaged 8,000 Angelinos in transformative service projects around Los Angeles. I think that deserves a round of applause right there. In its third year here in Los Angeles, the City Year Los Angeles Corps has doubled in size and is on track to continue its rapid growth in our schools. And since its founding in 2007, has already grown to become the third largest City Year site in the nation. And we're not going to rest till we're first. So today we congratulate City Year on its accomplishments and look forward to its continued growth and support of the children and neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And I just want to say to the young people who participate in City Year, all of us who share public service and community service as what guides our lives, it is something that you will take with you forever. Whether you're a native of Los Angeles giving back in a community you've known, or whether you've come to Los Angeles from another city, we count you as Angelinos and we count you as those bright stars here making this a better world. So with that, I'd like to introduce Allison Graf-Weisner, who is the Executive Director of City Year Los Angeles, to say a few words. Let's give it up for her. Allison.
My name is Allison Graf-Weisner, and I proudly serve as the Executive Director of City Year Los Angeles. It's a pleasure to be here with you to talk about the impact that these incredible 150 young people are making all throughout our city. And there's no better person to do that than one of our Corps members, so I'm thrilled actually to pass the mic over to Kathy Sanchez, a Corps member proudly serving at Berendo Middle School.
Good morning, everyone. Corps, please stand. Hi, so my name is Kathy Sanchez, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I grew up in South Central LA, and I went to John Marshall High School. I'm a recent UCLA graduate and a proud Bruin. I also proudly serve in Pico Union at Berendo Middle School. City Year is a nonprofit organization that unites 17 to 24-year-olds for a year of full-time service. In Los Angeles, we strive to keep kids on track and ready to graduate. We do this as tutors, mentors, and role models in 12 elementary and middle schools in Council Districts 1, 8, 9, 14, and 15 in communities such as Pico Union, Royal Heights, South LA, and Watts. We also engage middle school and high school students in community service and leadership development programs. And we lead community service projects to revitalize schools and public spaces. This year, we will support 1,900 students in class and after school. We will engage over 3,000 volunteers in transformative physical service, and we will complete over 225,000 hours of community service to Los Angeles. I decided to join City Year because I got to experience firsthand the educational gap within our city. My mother is a single parent who always pushed me towards success. She decided to bus me out of South Central LA and into schools in Hollywood and Los Feliz. I graduated from John Marshall High School and was the first in my family to go on to higher education. It was at UCLA and in my education classes that I realized that the resources available in the schools in South Central were different than the resources available at the schools that I attended. It was then that I decided that it was my responsibility to go back to the community and to help alleviate this gap. At Berendo Middle School, I've been privileged enough to work with an amazing team and awesome students. When I started my in-school service, it took me some time to notice Eduardo. Eduardo was that quiet kid who sat in the back of the class, who was simply getting by as a C- student. I came in, I worked with him, we did math homework, we read together, and we even worked on his paper on 9/11. Now he's a part of our after-school program, and his grades have risen up to a solid B. Eduardo is an amazing kid who only needed that extra push. This is my story, and I know that the 149 core members behind me have their own stories, their own success stories to share. Next year, I hope to come back to give another year of service, along with 200 more young leaders ready to change Los Angeles. We appreciate your continued support of our service, and we thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you.
I know Mr. Labange heard Marshall High School, so he's going to want to give a shout out for Marshall.
All schools, but I also, just a giant shout out to City Hall and Leon McLean, who's back in Philadelphia, who was City Year. City Year has helped us in Griffith Park. They help us all out. Can I ask one thing, Mr. Garcetti?
Yeah, of course.
Let's see City Year flood the center aisle so you get that great picture. Get in behind Mr. Garcetti there, right in there. Let's hear it for City Year.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Well, I also want to give a shout out to City Year. I've known some of you who have come to Watts to do some work. In fact, who has come to Watts? Yeah. Fabulous. In fact, there's some City Year young people right now, I believe, in my Watts office meeting with my director there, Erica Velasquez, to find out what is available to help with the community service. They're also doing a beautification project, I believe, at 116th Street Elementary School. So we love City Year. I think it's really wonderful that you're taking your energy, your youth, your passion, and making our city a much better place. You will have left Los Angeles a better place when you finish your hours. I'll tell you, we're all really grateful for you. You're terrific. We love you.
No, don't worry. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Is that the council member? So on behalf of the entire City Council, to all of you who are making a difference in young lives throughout this city and making a better city in Los Angeles, the City Council and the Mayor all want to congratulate you and present this resolution on behalf of all of us to City Year. Let's give a final round of applause to City Year. Come on through here.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, and all of you for all of your work. Ms. Hahn, you're next. Oh, wait, time out one real quick, Mr. Cardenas. No, changed his mind. Ms. Hahn, you're next.
Okay, come on and get close. You know, colleagues, today I'm really honored to bring to our City Council chambers a man who I believe deserves our respect and our honor. We're talking about James Spinoza, who apparently many of your union brothers and sisters call you Spinner, on the occasion of his retirement. On January 1st of this year, Jim retired with over 40 years in our International Longshore and Warehouse Union. And you know, we talk a lot about our economic stimulus projects in Los Angeles. We talk a lot about our economic engines in Southern California. And certainly the Port of Los Angeles with the Port of Long Beach are our biggest economic engines in the South Bay. Over 43% of the trade comes through those ports. They're responsible for millions of jobs, billions of dollars into our economy, and you can't talk about those ports and not talk about the men and women who every single day are moving those goods to keep the economy running. And Jim started work as a terminal warehouseman at those ports in 1969, when things were actually very different than they are now. It was a time of great transition for the union, with the introduction of containerized cargo just beginning. And I think even at that time, there wasn't a good idea of how that would become really the only way we did things, although now we're even looking at changing how even that cargo is moved. In 1970, Jim became a Marine clerk in ILWU Local 63. He received his A status in 1973. A decade later, he was hired by ILWU Locals 13, 63, 94 as the Southern California Container Freight Station Monitor. Then in 1987, he was elected Vice President of Local 63. Over the next decade, he went on to serve 7 different terms as president of the local. And in 1997, he was elected the International Vice President of the Union, and in 2000, he was elected International President. In these posts, he was responsible for the often difficult and demanding contract bargaining process. But through it all, he managed to achieve 3 main goals for the men and women that do put their lives on the line every day. He wanted to make sure that the members' health care benefits remained. He gained major increases in their pensions, and he protected union jobs while the industry implemented new technologies. From day one, Jim brought to the union his natural leadership skills, a practical approach to solving problems. He always believed that ILWU and the employers could only make progress by working together. That's the kind of leadership I think we all look to as we work out tough situations in our cities. He only asked that the employers, if the employers did well financially, that they brought union members along, recognizing that union wages and benefits were only a small fraction of the cost to ship a container. And this union has benefited greatly from Jim's ability to negotiate and close a deal, even under the most challenging of circumstances. As a leader, he played a major role in supporting the Longshore Division effort to secure maintenance and repair work, and he led the charge to organize the planners into the Marine Clerks Association, ILWU Local 63. Jim, I really want to thank you for your years of hard work, your dedication to the labor movement. When I think about what has taken place from containerization to 9/11 to in 2002, when our workers were locked out and the ports along the West Coast were shut down for 10 days, costing billions of dollars to our national economy, to the global economy. These were times that I'm not sure anyone could have foreseen when you started in 1969 as the issues that you were going to have to deal with. But we thank you for always caring about the men and women. And I give them a shout out as well today as I give you the shout out, particularly since 9/11. We got folks on the docks who never know what's going to be in that container. They never know who's going to be driving that truck. And literally, I've always said, our men and women on those docks are on the front line of this war on terrorism. Really. That's a vulnerable place, our ports. And yet, those folks show up every day. Work hard in dangerous situations to keep cargo moving, to keep the economy moving. But it's leadership like Jim's that I think has allowed them to feel like there's someone who's watching their back, there's someone who's making sure that for their hard work and for their life commitment on those docks, they're going to be paid a decent wage, they're going to have health benefits for their family, and at the end of the day, the deal is if you work hard, you're going to be able to take care of your family for the rest of your life. I have a son who's a casual longshoreman, and he's been a casual for a lot of years now because the work isn't there like it used to be. And the cargo has dipped. We're glad to see it's coming back up. But it is a tough job. But it is a noble job, and it is a worthwhile job. So we want to thank also your wife, Betty, your stepson, Mike Sestich, and his wife, Susan, and your best friend, Mario D'Ambrosia, who are here with us today. Mike and Mario are also members of the ILWU. So on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, I know you're a humble guy. Nobody even knows that we're doing this. They said, gee, Jim didn't really tell us you were doing this, but every time I see you around town in San Pedro, I thought, I felt it was worthy. Your life history for our country by your leadership on the docks was deserved, I thought, of a full resolution from the City Council of Los Angeles honoring you, honoring your life, and honoring your retirement. And I hope you have a great, relaxing next chapter of your life. So on behalf of the city, Jim, thank you.
Thank you, Janice.
We'll take some pictures in the back. Why don't you say a few words?
Well, I want to thank Janice, and I can't tell you how much we respect her in our area. And I also want to thank the council here today for recognizing me and taking this time out. I understand the problems that you face, the economic times that we're in. This is considered a tremendous honor to me that I'm here today in receiving this award. So thank you once again, and keep up the good work, and thank you, Janice.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn.
Why don't we go in the back and we'll take a picture?
This being Friday, it is Feline Friday. Mr. Koretz?
Good morning, colleagues. I'm happy to be standing here for another Feline Friday as we feature another of our wonderful cats from our shelters for adoption. And that cat isn't here yet, though. So give me a second as it hopefully comes up.
You got to have the feline.
Yeah, can't do the feline without it. Let's see the feline. The cat's in the bag. Well, hopefully soon the cat will be out of the bag.
Shit, he don't get out of the bag.
Too many people.
So here we have our beautiful cat. He's an orange and white tabby named Bernie. Hopefully he's picture. I don't want to. How do we do this so you can see the cat? He's 2 years old. He's got a beautiful coat and a very sweet personality. And to adopt him, you can either call my office at 213-473-7005, or you can come down to the council chamber. This is a very sweet cat. His ID number is 1092590. And generally, to adopt an animal, you can call any of our shelters by calling the main line at 888-452-7381. So come on down and adopt this beautiful and very sweet cat. Thank you. And you're going to do the dog, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. For today, we're having a combined Feline Friday, and also I've got to adopt a dog Friday as well. So what we have here, let's bring Taquito. Taquito, stand up. Taquito is a 2-year-old Chihuahua. He has his shots. Taquito, if you're interested, and look at, he's cute, calm, doesn't weigh much, won't eat much, but I bet he'll be one heck of a watchdog. The little dogs always are. If you're interested in Taquito, please call 888-452-7381. We're going to Taquito. Taquito, take it one more time, Taquito. Smile. We're going to keep Taquito, and what's the cat's name? Beanie the cat, and Taquito. Oh, he did that on his own. Look at that. And Taquito, the Chihuahua, will be in the back for a while. A lot of, in fact, probably 70+% of the cats and the dogs that we get adopted at the City of LA are adopted by members who are either here in the Assembly chambers or employees that are looking at this on the television screens or listening to us on the radio. Mr. Cardenas mentioned it earlier. We're not doing this, Paul and I, just because we think it's a cutesy thing to do. Whenever you adopt one of our dogs or one of our cats, you save their lives, because we just financially cannot keep these dogs or cats or other animals in the shelters. So please, if you're looking for a companion animal, please come adopt Taquito, Beanie. Let's save their lives. Thank you very much. No barking. You get the sweater.
Thank you very much.
We'll even throw in the bag.
We'll recognize Councilmember Tom LaBonge for our next presentation.
Thank you very much. It's a quick presentation and announcement. Councilman Nate Holden, former councilman, give Mr. Holden a big hand. And Council General, who was introduced earlier, but Omar Odeber, who's here from Aruba to promote their first film festival, and I wanted to get his website out to promote this in June. Council General.
Thank you very much, Council. For me, it's a pleasure to be here all the way from Aruba. Greetings from the government of Aruba also. I think this is the beginning of a new relation between Aruba, being part of the Dutch Kingdom also, and California, in this case Hollywood. And I would like to thank also Mr. Holden, who has been very helpful to us, and invite you all to Aruba to participate in this first annual film festival to be held in Aruba. And I have to mention that between the 25 to 30 films that are going to be presented in Aruba, we have almost the majority of them being produced right here in California. So for us, it's a pleasure to invite you all to Aruba. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, good job. That's it. Thank you, Mr. President. And I have 4 minutes, 52 seconds for Chris West.
All right, when he gets
on
here.
the desk.
All right. With that, we'll go now to public comment. If we can actually take up item 3 now that we have 12, or no, 2. I think Mr. Cardenas called 3 special, so we'll wait on that. But 2 is just awaiting a 12th person for the vote. So if we can please open the roll on 2, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. And for general public comment, Michael Hubman is our first speaker. And after that is Timothy Butcher. Michael Hubman? Come on forward, Mr. Butcher. We'll put Mr. Hubman to the side for now. And then Lee Glaze will follow Mr. Butcher. Good morning.
Good morning. Council, I wish to come before you again to ask you to, during these difficult economic times that we're all very aware of that we're in, to please continue working with us in labor. Please continue to look for outside of the box thinking and resolutions. We're most interested in saving jobs and those services to the city that represents. Please avoid draconian or unilateral decisions. Please keep working with us. We will work with you, and together we can get through this.
Thank you very much, Timothy. Appreciate your words and your presence. Lee Glaze is our next speaker. Hold on, Mr. Glaze, we'll make sure you have a microphone. Hold on 1 second. Oops. Can you make it up there okay? All right. I guess we're okay.
The what?
Do you want to sit down with the handheld, or are you okay there?
This is okay, fine. I need the exercise anyway.
Good morning.
Good morning, Councilman Garcetti, ladies and gentlemen of the council, City Attorney Drew Tanich. My name is Lee Glaze. I live at 1602 Ivar, which is the Triangle Square, gay and lesbian elder housing. As you can see, I have a thing here that is my identification for Miller Children's Hospital in Long Beach. I lived in Long Beach for 57 years. As far as ADA violations, I have been the city's worst nightmare. My foundation threatened to file suit as far as the city was concerned over about 4,000 or 5,000 individual violations. Now, most of you know that the city was given millions and millions of dollars to correct these, in the early 70s, I believe, that the thing was supposed to be completed by 1995. They're a tad late. At any rate, I'd like to get that working with Councilman Garcetti, and then I wanted to talk, have a meeting with the chief of police and also City Attorney Trutanich, that we have a couple of officers in the Wilcox station who have the mentality of some officers that unfortunately I met in 1965 in a little demonstration called Selma, in which I was kicked in the back by some overly aggressive Klansmen, and when I was screaming for help, an officer joined. So I would like to speak to them strongly about two officers that I feel infringe upon civil rights, who happen to have referred to my mentally adopted grandson. He said, "Oh, I see you live in that gay building." So that's not acceptable in this day and age, because to me that is a slur. Being the activist that I am, I won't tolerate that. So at any rate, I'd like to talk to City Attorney Trutanich along with the City Police. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Glaze. Appreciate your presence here as well. Arnold Sachs is our next speaker. Is Michael Hubman back? Okay, we'll pass on Mr. Hubman's card. Mr. Sachs, and then Dr. Wiseman in Van Nuys.
Thank you. Good morning. On last meeting you had, Mr. President, you qualified my comments when I mentioned there were 700 layoffs that were written about in the downtown news from last June 2009, and you mentioned that the 700 layoffs that had been reached and that the number was correct. But the article went on to say that in the budget that had been adopted in that June, 1,600 positions were expected to be eliminated to cover a $320 million general fund shortfall. Now, there's been numbers talked about. 4,000 was talked about in December 2008. Who's going to argue with honest Jan Perry? Because we've seen how her discussions. But 4,000 in 2008 and 4,000 in February of 2010. And those numbers would be great or not so great if it was static. But that doesn't take into account this ERIP, the 2,800 people that were going to hit early retirement. So for the sake of argument, let's round it up to 3,000 people. So in December of 2008, you actually should have been talking about 7,000 people. Unless, of course, you take those ERIP retirees out of the equation. And if you take the retirees out of the equation, out of the 4,000, then you're only left with 1,200 or 1,000 people need to be, jobs need to be eliminated, which is not good, but not as bad as 4,000. So the question is why isn't ERIP being moved along? Why aren't you asking for updates on why the retirement program? Why aren't the union representatives in here saying, we need this program to move forward because every early retirement saves somebody's job in the city? Why not? You throw numbers around, you throw curveballs around, and you're full of crap.
Thank you. As a point of information, we've had 5 updates in the last 2 weeks on early retirement. Mr. Sachs, we're a month and a half ahead of what was projected, and we do have union leaders and union members who are in here saying that as well. So I think you might be inaccurate on both counts of what the council and union membership are doing. Dr. Wiseman is our next speaker in Van Nuys. After that is Candido Maras, also in Van Nuys Chambers. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I'm glad you remembered my good friend Candido. He's sitting here anxious to talk to you. I want to make public 2 meetings that are going to happen today. One with the 15 budget representatives of the neighborhood councils, who are the neighborhood council people who will have the opportunity to meet face-to-face with Mr. Villaraigosa in the next few weeks and bring some of the thoughts of neighborhood councils as far as our viewpoints on the budget. Right after that, that same group of 15 people will be continuing to meet, and this time in open session where anyone can come, and my apologies for a very late notice, to continue the deliberations that have been going on for the last several months in tremendous intensity with the neighborhood council people. Now, I have in my hands here 2 documents which I wish I could get to you, and I will email to all you on the board, expressing a number of other issues. But you know, the mayor asked us all to share the responsibility and share the sacrifice, and the responsibility. You, my dear council members, honorable council members, the mayor and the 75 people who he has elected for the general managerships and other positions of responsibility are vested with the responsibility of our city's affairs. You have failed to do so. And I do not want to minimize the fact that the economy has made it very, very difficult for you. However, it's not that you haven't been warned. It's not that you could not have done things. We are doing things so fast that even an announcement of a meeting like this afternoon that I just made has to be made so suddenly. I wish we had time to do things better, but it's time for all of you, 75 people, to take a 25% cut in your salaries immediately, showing that you are responsible, you are our leaders. Show us that you're ready to take the responsibility you're asking all the rest of us to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wiseman. Candido Maris is our next speaker, also in Van Nuys. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members. It sounds like you have a cold. I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
I just want to say that the greatest city in the greatest country, Los Angeles, is going through hard times, but we've been through that, Mr. President, council members. We went through the riots, and we survived. We went through the earthquakes, and we survived, and now we're going through a financial crisis. But we've got to remember what the greatest asset of this city is. What is our greatest asset? The people of this great city. And you find them from San Pedro to Chatsworth, from the east side to the west side. So I beg of you to please use the people of this great city, to work with them. You have those individuals that are working in the neighborhood councils. They are dedicated, hardworking, and inspired. Done may be gone, but the hard work and dedication is still there, so I hope that you'll tap into that resource and work with them. Sacrifices have been made by almost everyone, the city workers, the residents, even you, council members. We're now having to tap into our reserves. That's like going into your savings. Once you just start doing that, we really have to start worrying about our financial situation. But if we work with the people, if we work together, we can overcome this. The one area that we're not, I don't think we spend enough time in, I know Wendy Gruhl kind of mentioned it with her audit of the procurement system. There are millions and millions of dollars that can be saved there. Contractors, you're talking about looking at the contractors and having them reduce them. Mr. President, council members, we must take this serious, and we must go back and ask these contractors and the people that do business with this great city to sacrifice, and everybody else is doing it. And so to all the people of this great city, we're down, but we're not out. The greatest city in the greatest country in the world will be back, and we'll survive this. So thank you, Mr. President. Working together, we'll get past this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris. That will conclude our general public comment. We'll now go to items called special. Item 3 is the first one, and Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Although public comment is not required, there have been many hearings on this. If we could please open it up for the public comment cards to at least speak for a minute apiece, Mr. President, on item number 3. So if we can give them at least a minute apiece to speak, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then I'll make my comments.
Robert Rodin is the first. We'll do a minute per speaker per Mr. Cardenas' motion. After Mr. Rodin is Ron Merkin.
Mr. President, if you'll excuse me, I prepared my comments for 1 minute and 39 seconds, not realizing we would be abbreviated.
Sure.
Good morning, President Garcetti and council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Robert Rodin, and my firm, the Polaris Group, is located in Sherman Oaks. I am the co-chair of the VICA Aviation Committee. I am here to request that you defer action on item number 3, the EIR, for a proposed ordinance to phase out Stage 2 business jets at Van Nuys Airport until such time as the demand forecast and associated impacts can be validated by an independent expert. I have been working in the analysis of land use intensity and potential at Van Nuys Airport since 1995. My analysis of the EIR, based on LAWA data, indicates that the 2014 forecast of business jet operations is overstated by 27.9%, given the aircraft basing and itinerant support capacity of the airport.
Go ahead if you want to finish those thoughts.
Thank you. The 2008 business jet census was 265, and the developed leaseholds were being used at a maximum intensity. Under the master plan, by 2014, undeveloped land will come into service that will increase business aircraft basing capacity to 396 aircraft. Even with that capacity increase, it would still be necessary to increase aircraft utilization intensity by the aforementioned 27.9% to produce the 83,000 operations forecasted on page 429 of the EIR. Overstatement of the operations forecast will directly overstate the alleged deleterious effect of the operations, and that in turn substantially overstates the asserted benefit of the proposed ordinance. Please set this EIR aside as requested. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ron Merkins, our next speaker, then Prudy Schultz. And again, if we can, we'll try to keep things to a minute with a little bit of leeway.
Mr. President, council members, my name is Ron Merkin. I'm a board member of the Van Nuys Airport Citizens Advisory Council, and I'm urging the LA City Council to support and approve the proposed Stage 2 phase-out. Thousands of residents that surround the Van Nuys Airport have been affected by these types of jets for many years, and they do need some relief. There's been some talk about decibel levels not being high enough to distract affected residents, but the fact of the matter is that they do hear those sounds, and they are affected by the noise that these jets produce. It's time for Van Nuys Airport to become a good neighbor, and again, I urge the Stage 2 phase-out process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prudy Schultz is next, and then Don Schultz. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Prudy Schultz, and for years I have endured the noise of the noisy Stage 2 jets taking off from Van Nuys Airport during the early morning and late evening hours. When I first heard the news that these noisy aircraft were going to be phased out at Van Nuys Airport, I honestly felt that this was a time to celebrate. However, I have since learned that in order for this to happen, the City Council must vote today to make it official in the near future. Simply put, I'm asking you to place your final stamp of approval on this issue today and allow me, my neighbors, and all of the noise-impacted individuals near the Van Nuys Airport to enjoy our open windows and our backyards once again. Please support the Stage 2 phase-out for Van Nuys Airport. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schultz. Don Schultz is next, then Wayne Williams.
Good morning, council members. My name is Don Schultz. I'm vice chair for the Van Nuys Airport Citizens Advisory Council. I'm not speaking for the council, but I do want to speak to the action that has taken over the last several years, and that is to support this phase-out of the noisy Stage 2 jets. So we urge you to follow that direction. Last evening, I was fortunate to speak to Congressman Howard Berman's office, and he asked to relay the message to you folks. He supports the phase-out of the noisy Stage 2 aircraft at Van Nuys Airport. So we're hoping you follow his lead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Wayne Williams is next. Last time I saw you were on a bicycle. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Mr. President. Council members, it's my pleasure, first of all, to represent Councilmember Paul Koretz and the hundreds of thousands of residents of the San Fernando Valley as a member of the Van Nuys Airport Citizens Advisory Council. And I'm not a paid lobbyist. We've been enduring noisy Stage 2 jets for more than 20 years, and that's enough time. Even if you pass this phase out, which I hope you will, we may have to wait another 6 years, and that's plenty of time for the owners of these aircraft to invest in upgrades. These few remaining Stage 2 jets make the noise that destroy our quality of life and right to privacy, and it's time for them to be upgraded or removed. Jobs won't be lost, as the technicians who work on Stage 2s also work on hush-kitted versions and quieter Stage 3s and Stage 4 jets that are soon to arrive. Upgraded planes will have more value and become more efficient to fly. We're a vibrant and forward-looking nation. May I go on? Stage 2s are relics of the past we can afford to live without. Remember how car makers said that putting seat belts and smog converters would hurt the auto industry? Well, that didn't happen, yet we got safer cars and cleaner air. The city has implemented Stage 2 curfews and an on-addition rule, which had not done significant financial harm to Van Nuys Airport, but did improve life for residents. This final step to finally phase out Stage 2 jets will likely increase our property values, which also benefits the city and has never been studied. The master plan of Van Nuys Airport implores you to remove the last of these Stage 2 jets as soon as possible. Failure to pass this phase-out could severely damage the likelihood that the FAA will accept the submission of the excellent yet costly Part 161 study that also supports the removal of Stage 2 jets. It's time for our quality of life and right to privacy be placed ahead of the baseless crystal ball gazing fears of a few lost jobs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wayne. David Renkel is our last speaker.
Good morning. I'm going to read into the record a letter from homeowners of Encino dated February 24th, 2010. In 1979, the residents of the San Fernando Valley were promised an effective noise regulation for Van Nuys Airport by the LA City Council. The residents sought an ordinance that would protect them from the expanding noise at Van Nuys Airport. 30 years have now elapsed, and we still are without an effective regulation that would control noisy jets emanating from Van Nuys Airport. The Los Angeles Board of Airport Commissioners approved noise regulation on May 9th, 2009 that is now pending before the LA City Council. This proposal would set a maximum noise limit that would ban the noisiest jets. This would be brought into effect in phases over several years. On March 19th, 2009, the FAA sent LAWA a letter stating the phase-out would be exempt from ANCA, the Airport Noise and Capacity Act. Homeowner associations and thousands of Valley residents favor this noisy jet phase-out. Congressman Brad Sherman also supports the phase-out. The matter goes before you today for approval, and we ask that you please support this necessary measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That'll close our general public comment, or our public comment, on this. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. First, I want to thank all of the individuals and organizations who have been part of this dialogue for over 2 decades. And also, I would like to thank the chairwoman of the committee that this item went through. Thank you so much for all your diligent work, and to all the staff. It's been, again, as I say, it's been over 2 decades since this debate's been going on. But one of the things we need to be reminded is we're not getting rid of the aircraft, and we're not getting rid of the airport. We're phasing out the noisiest jets, the noisiest aircraft from this airport. Also, I'd like to point out that somebody mentioned that we should do this nationally. I also support a phase-out nationally as well, but that's an issue that I have no control over. I'm a councilman only for the city of Los Angeles, and this airport, the Van Nuys Airport, is owned by the people and the city of Los Angeles. So that we do have some ability on, and that's why we're here today. Again, we're phasing out the noisiest aircraft, and then that phase-out will will commence and also move toward January 1st, 2016, when the noise levels will have to be below, they cannot exceed 77 dBA. And it's really important for people to understand, like I said, we're not getting rid of the airport. Yes, I have some constituents that have asked me and called my office and said, just get rid of the airport. With all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, the airport's been there over 75 years. It is now, unfortunately, it has now become the biggest economic engine, maybe a noisy engine, but it's the biggest economic engine in the San Fernando Valley. At one time, there were many, many big economic engines, and they may have argued over who is the biggest. Today, the Van Nuys Airport is the biggest economic engine in the San Fernando Valley. So one of the things that we need to understand, especially in times like this, we need to strike balance. And once again, I'd like to thank all the voices, all the individuals who've worked on this formally and informally, and some people have actually screamed in my face about this. Some people have actually wrote letters and petitions. There have been many meetings about it, but I've only been a councilman for 6 years, and this has been on the front of my plate for the entire 6 years. So for me, this is a very proud moment. This is an opportunity for the city of Los Angeles to culminate a promise, not only of dialogue, but of action for well over 2 decades. Somebody just mentioned from Encino that it was in 1979 that the first effort and or promise had commenced. But I know officially it's been well over 2 decades, so the bottom line is this is a day long coming, and this is an opportunity for us as the council of today to do the right thing and to strike the right balance and move forward.
As well, I'd like to remind people that the Van Nuys Airport is the busiest general aviation airport in the world. It's the biggest airport of its kind in the world. So, therefore, there's a lot of responsibility there to the airport. There's a lot of burden and responsibility to the surrounding community. And today, I think that we've done a fine thing by striking the right balance. We have not given up on having a national phase-out, although, Mr. Rodin, your stomach is turning when you hear that. But the fact of the matter is, I'm on record saying that, and I don't have a problem saying it again. And one more thing, they've mentioned our congressional members. Now perhaps we could move on to talking to our congressional members, because we are the busiest general aviation airport in the world, and we have a tower, a control tower that is woefully overutilized, and it's time for us to get a new control tower. It's going to create a fight to do that. We're going to have to fight for that. We need to do it to keep the community and those aircraft safe. Let's move on beyond this, and let's move to that that control tower that our congressional members certainly can do something about, as long as we are respectful and continue to remind them that we need their support on getting a new control tower. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. We have 3 speakers on the queue. Chair of TCT Committee first, Ms. Hahn, Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Koretz. I would like to just say, colleagues, I know I've spoken privately, but we do have a memorial service at noon. If we're still in the middle of the meeting, we will recess. But if possible, let's see if we can finish the business by noon as much as possible. Ms. Hahn.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, yes, we heard this item in our committee, and we had a very interesting discussion. We talked about if the FAA had actually weighed in on our decision, and in fact they had, and we're okay with this as long as it complied with federal grant obligations. We talked about why this was grandfathered in. So we actually learned a lot about it, and I made the correlation that it really does remind me of what we're doing at the port. We're banning all pre-89 dirty diesel trucks. We're now banning all pre-92 dirty diesel trucks. And the fact of the matter is we're moving forward to certainly keep these entities alive and well, but we're doing things which we think will improve the quality of life for people who live around our airports and our ports. And we learned that there was actually something that owners could do to make their planes quieter. I learned about a hush kit that owners could actually use to make their planes quieter. So thank you, Tony, for your leadership with your community on this. This is the right thing for us to do to move forward. Appreciate when the community comes down here to testify. I think that matters to council members as we move forward with these policies and these ordinances. We'd like hearing from how it does impact you. And except for a few dissenting voices, overwhelmingly we heard that this was what the community also wanted. It makes for a better airport, and it really puts us into the future in terms of how we are going to regulate the things that are within our control. We did also talk about doing something on a federal level that will address this issue on a more universal scale, which is really everything. We are the leaders. We're probably the leaders in how we look at our airports. We're the leader in how we look at our ports. But ultimately, we always want to be on the national scene. We want these things to be at a federal level, so it does not make us, uncompetitive with other airports. So we do lead the way, which is right. We also ought to push these issues at the federal level. So if it's a good policy for us, it's a good policy for other airports and other ports. And I think that's what our goal should be. So let's move forward with this. Hopefully we'll get an aye vote on this.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Could Mike Molina come up for a quick second, please, from the airport? And I totally agree with Ms. Hahn on this. And, of course, Mr. Cardenas, your leadership on this is phenomenally great, and I know Mr. Koretz was involved with it. But from our end, when it went before committee, when we heard the facts and we even heard where the FAA wanted to take this thing as time goes on, it's really a no-brainer to support the community, obviously, in something that makes a lot of sense to do. Mike, quickly, tell us the story. What's happening here?
Relative to the FAA?
Yeah, what is this?
We have
In the FAA reauthorization legislation that is before the Congress right now, both the House and the Senate bill have various versions of the same action that you are taking today, which is a phase-out of Stage 2 aircraft. The House bill has passed, the Senate bill is pending, and we're confident that in the conference committee, once the Senate bill passes, that the Congress and the FAA will have its own Stage 2 phase-out as part of that package. So, as has been said, your action today is showing leadership.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, an aye vote makes sense for all of us to do. And again, thank you, Mr. Cardenas, for your support on that leadership. And Mr. Koretz.
Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. The residents of the San Fernando Valley have been the victims of disturbances from noisy aircraft for far too long. Long ago, other airports like John Wayne and Santa Monica Airport took it upon themselves to restrict these out-of-date Stage 2 aircraft. And as you all know, these are the aircraft that were built before 1983 that make more jet noise than the Stage 3 aircraft built after that date. And for decades now, advocates have worked tirelessly to vet this issue appropriately through the proper channels. They proactively requested EIRs to evaluate the situation. So today, finally, a proper vetting has been conducted, and it's time to adopt these recommendations. And the time to do that is right now. I want to especially thank Gerald Silver and Wayne Williams for many years of dedicated work on this issue, and I ask for an aye vote, and to join my other colleagues that have spoken in favor.
Thank you very much. And with that, let's go ahead and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That passes. Thank you to the community, and thank you to hard work of council members on this. Mr. Wesson?
Yes, Mr. President, would this be an appropriate time to announce that Taquito has been adopted by Lorenzo, who works for Councilmember Parks? I'm sure that Councilmember Parks is overjoyed to hear that Taquito has been adopted by one of his staff.
For Mr. Parks, right?
Yep.
Right. Congratulations, Mr. Parks. You're a very proud grandpa. With that, if we can turn to the next item called Mr. LaBonge for the last presentation. Mr. LaBonge.
Hey, Chris. That's okay. No, that's okay. Come in. Hi, Kim. Good to see you. And this is Jennifer. Jennifer, good morning. I got 4 minutes, 52 seconds left when we started the Chris Wetzoff salute. He was still in his love of his life next to his wife, Kim, and daughter, Jennifer. He was in the Board of Public Works. But Chris Wetzoff is retiring from city service after 32 years. And he has been focused on improving the quality of life in Los Angeles in his work in the Public Works Department. There are many great city attorneys in our city attorney's office, but this one has focused on issues that has made a direct difference every day, whether it's negotiations with others on the suit that troubled the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Sanitation out at the Hyperion Treatment Plant, whether it was a variety of comments that he gave to direct to improve the varieties of quality of life issues that we want. This is a man who has made a difference. He has helped in every which way possible. And Chris, I wanted to thank you for this. Thank you for this, and the whole council wanted to thank you for this, because we felt strongly that you deserved this, because you've cared about the city first, you cared about the Board of Public Works first. It's also really important to know that Chris is loved by many people. His celebration lasted long overdue. If Rita Robinson was there, she would give you a ticket for that. But we also have a special guest who's with us from the City Attorney's Office, Pete Echeverria. If I could call on Pete to say a few words before I call on Chris. Pete. Thank you.
Just very briefly, this is not just a great loss for us as city employees and for you as city officials, but for the residents of the city. But beyond that, Chris hasn't just been a paragon of professionalism and dedication to our office. He's been a leader. He's been a role model. He has brought passion to everything that he does in the office. And so he has been actually a model for all of us to follow and to try and fashion ourselves after. We will miss him not just for his contribution in a legal sense to the city, but for the contribution that he made to our office as one of our leaders. and there's just no way to replace somebody like that. We're going to miss him terribly.
Thank you very much, Peter. I also want to recognize Ron Deaton, who is here. Ron, come up here real quick, Ron. Ron came up to salute Chris in the Board of Public Works celebration. And Ron, I'd ask you to make remarks. If you could just say a quick thing about Chris and the great job. Center table, Chad. You like that? Come right here real quick. Real quick. I only got 2:41 left. There we go. Say something about Chris.
Is Tom in charge here? Always, yes. Now, Chris was an attorney, was part of the team, a person that looked at the city's best interest. And who said first?
I said.
Yeah, you said first. Tom's always putting words in my mouth. No, I think Chris was a member of the team, and I think that in conversations with him at times it was difficult to understand that, but his always was the person who tried to do the right thing and was going to make sure that you understood his position very well. And I think he was a very positive influence on a lot of us, and I wish him well in his retirement. So.
Ron, thank you. So, Chris, on behalf of the mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles City Council, and with our city attorney, as well as our city controller, salute you for your great years of service and congratulate you, Chris. You are an angel in the city of angels. I give you not only this great resolution, but I give you something that came from the streets of Los Angeles. This was part of the railroad that went down Largemont, and when you got Largemont repaid for me, I picked it up for you because I knew you'd want it for your retirement one day. All right, Chris, congratulations.
Thank you, and we have Councilmember Perry, Councilmember Smith, and Councilmember Alarcon. Councilmember Perry.
Chris, I just wanted to say that you are a rare breed of attorney, city attorney, a public sector attorney. You always told us what maybe we didn't want to hear, but you told it with grace and elegance and substance, and you respected other people's opinions, and you were never afraid to advance your own. And I couldn't think of a better way to represent a client in the way that you did. So congratulations, and you will be deeply missed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to join with the colleagues here saying thank you to Chris. Chris and I go back a long time, like you did with Mr. Deaton, and we certainly went head-to-head on a few things, and as chairman of the Public Works Committee for a few years, we had numerous discussions, heated discussions about things, but I never once questioned your integrity or your dedication to the people of L.A. I always felt you were a great lawyer, and while I sometimes disagreed, because I really wanted us to go a different direction, you stood fast, you told what we need as council members. You told it the way it is, the way you saw it as an attorney, and gave us the best legal counsel you could give as an attorney. You were always the people's attorney, and while I didn't always win every fight with you, I certainly enjoyed the fight because I know it was done on a truly basis of you wanted to do what was right, my doing what I thought was right, but I never ever questioned once in all those years, all your dedication to the people of LA, and that you were doing it for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. And I wish all of our employees would do that. I wish we'd see that more around here. So I thank you, and we've joked for a long time about your retirement. I'm glad it's finally here for you, not for us, but for you. And I wish you the best of everything. And your daughter, how's she doing in college, by the way? She's
great.
She's doing great. Well, glad to hear that. Good luck to you in your retirement, and God bless you. And I'll be 16 months behind you, so we'll catch up.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl.
Yeah, just a quick shout out as having been chair of Public Works. It was one of my first committees that I chaired, and you sat next to me there, and every now and then you would chime in and you would set the record straight. You would go deep into your history and your relationships, and you were extremely helpful to me as chair of the committee and obviously to the whole city. Good luck in your retirement. Thank you for your government service.
Thank you, Mr. Zahn.
I, too, join the accolades, but Chris, you and I never argued. We always agreed. So I never had an issue that you didn't agree with. You never had an issue I didn't agree with, so it always worked out very well. So your many years of dedicated service doesn't speak well of Mr. Smith. I understand that. But Chris did a great job. And I know there were many challenges that you faced when you were here, but you always did it with professionalism, with dignity, and here you are today with your family retiring to enjoy
the many, many years of happiness ahead. So for all the people of Los Angeles, all the good work you've done over the years, I know that it's taken a lot of folks out, this retirement plan, dedicated folks who've given a lot to this city. Congratulations to your many years of future happiness and retirement.
Thank you very much. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just want to say congratulations on retirement. And as you can see from a couple of us, it's life after retirement. You can go do whatever you choose to do. And I just appreciate your professionalism and the number of times we've had the opportunity to work on different issues. And you always came away with the understanding that you were giving us good advice and that you were giving solid advice, and you were always consistent. And that's important when you're dealing with your lawyer. So thank you very much. Have a great retirement. You deserve it.
Thank you. And with that, Chris, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council members, obviously, you don't spend over 32 years in this building and not come to appreciate the amount of work that it takes to deliver the services that we all deliver to the citizens every day. You got, in those 32 years, every day, 110% of my effort. I care about this city. I care about the Department of Public Works passionately. You always got an honest, straightforward opinion. May not have always liked the opinion that you got. I guess I may miss my many minutes and hours that I got to spend at the center table on the various issues. I mean, there's an old curse that goes something like, may you live in interesting times. I don't think that's a curse. I think that's actually a blessing. I got to help build the largest wastewater treatment facility west of the Mississippi River in Hyperion. I got to take and protect the city's minority women and other business enterprise program in the California Supreme Court. And I got to work with 5,000 employees in the Department of Public Works and the Board of Public Works and all of the bureaus for over 27 years. Never lacked for things to do. Always thoroughly enjoyed it. And that is probably what I'm going to miss the most, are the challenges that are presented every day to all of us in trying to serve and preserve the city of Los Angeles as the great entity that it is. Thank you all and all of your staffs. I worked very closely with many of them over the last 32 years, and it has been a real pleasure, and I want to thank you very much for acknowledging my retirement and hope that as we move forward, we will be able to find the solutions to the difficult problems that this city faces as we move forward. And I want to thank Ron Deaton for coming back. I spent a lot of meetings with Ron trying to solve the problems, and I thoroughly enjoyed our relationship and the insight that he brought. I want to introduce my wife, Kim. She is a city attorney. She's in the land use section, and she will continue to provide services to the citizens of Los Angeles. My eldest daughter, Jennifer, who is a senior at Berkeley and hopefully will be attending law school in the fall and follow in mom and dad's footsteps. My younger daughter is up at the University of Oregon and couldn't get back here because of midterms. But, they allowed me to be the lawyer that I am and the lawyer I have been for this city, and I thank them. I thanked earlier the entire Department of Public Works, and I want to thank all of you for graciously accepting me and taking my advice when you believed it was the right thing to do. Thank you all.
Thank you again.
Those guys, they took your advice.
And thank you, Mr. Labange, for that presentation, and congratulations again, Chris.
Thank you. We're going to go in the rear. If all those city attorneys want to join us in the room for the photo with Chris, please join us. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Mr. Parks for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'd like to introduce a group of young people here today, and they reside in Councilman Reyes' district. But I'd like to ask, first of all, Ms. Guzman and Ms. Garcia, the chaperones and teachers from the Leo Paletti Elementary School. Would you stand and be recognized? And also now the students. This is the student body of the school. They would like to make sure that they're recognized and here to watch city government action. Thank you very much for being here.
You can all wave now, see? There you are. Go ahead, wave high. You'll see yourself tonight. There you go.
Hey, you look good.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hahn has asked for 32 to be taken next out of order. There's no objection. Ms. Hahn, 32. Would you like the card first? Why don't we, Mr. Sachs, if you'd like to come forward on 32.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. Item 32 refers to the toxicity of drinking water or contaminants contained in the drinking water. I was wondering if the Energy and Environment Committee could mitigate the potential harm to the public and provide some relief to the public regarding the toxicity and the contaminants contained in the City Council horseshoe. Thank you.
All right, that'll be our first warning, sir, that was not what was before us. And if that is repeated, that'll be in violation of what is before us in the Brown Act. Okay, if we can please turn to Ms. Hahn now.
Can we have the department come up? Obviously, colleagues, this is about an article that came out in the LA Times last December that I think had a lot of us very alarmed. I know we got some calls from our constituents, and certainly as council members, our main goal is to make sure that, our water is safe, that we have no qualms about our drinking water. I mean, safety and reliability is, as well as conservation, our goals and our mission. So it's very alarming to me when the LA Times wrote this article that basically said we had higher rates. The total number of chemicals detected were higher than I felt they should have been. They found 14 chemicals that exceeded the state and federal health guidelines. The national average was 4 chemicals. Also found 30 pollutant chemicals in the water. So basically, this environmental working group that did a testing on our water came back with, again, many people, I'm one of them, we're not water experts. So we're going to rely on you to sort of tell us why did that look so bad? Should we be concerned about people drinking DWP water? Is this something is there a reason we have these chemicals in our water? Is that our infrastructure problem? So maybe you can address what this environmental working group found, address maybe if you saw any misconceptions in the report or how the LA Times wrote about it, because I don't think there's any one of us that probably weren't a little bit alarmed by what we heard. And I felt it was worth bringing you here, having you explain to us and answer the question, is our water safe?
Thank you very much.
Why don't you bring that microphone? You can pull the whole thing. There you go.
Thank you. I'm Pankaj Parekh with the Department of Water and Power. I'm the Director for Water Quality. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and address your concerns. And I hope we have many more of these opportunities, because I think the bottom line here is that we don't have good information out there for the public to understand just what goes on behind the scenes, and allow certain reports like these to sway people's opinion about the safety of water. This particular report happens to be from a special interest group. There are others. Just a month before this report was published, the NRDC, another environmental organization, had ranked us 5th in the nation, in the top 5, for the efforts that undergo for preserving and making the water safe for the city of Los Angeles. The EWG report, the Environmental Working Group report that you're referring to, and that the newspapers did, maybe with the best of intentions, but it was very poorly designed. It was trying to compare water across the nation. It was using as a database information that cannot be compared. It's an apples to oranges kind of a comparison. And in a strange way, when I first heard of it, of course I was very disappointed. I was very upset. But the more I reviewed on how they had structured their ranking and what went into it, unfortunately, at the end of the day, I was disappointed that we were not ranked worse. And that's strange to hear that, but let me explain. They were trying to make the point that there are more chemicals in the environment. Fair enough. You know, we're an industrial society, lots more chemicals are going to be out there, and they're growing. They were trying to make a point that more regulations are needed for drinking water quality. Fair enough. It's good to have more regulations. We need to be vigilant. Where I had a huge problem with this was that then they equated two occurrence informations out there with the safety of water. They embarked on developing their own regulatory standards to compare the water against. City of Los Angeles and our Department of Water and Power prides itself not only in trying to be in compliance with every single regulation for water safety, we also try to be vigilant and be ahead of the game to know what might be coming and to be prepared for it. The way you do that is being vigilant and transparent. That means you monitor more. That means you monitor for chemicals that are not yet regulated. You monitor for them at levels lower than that are required. You monitor for it more frequently than what is required. And when you do that and you want to be transparent, you provide this data to the regulators, you provide this data to the public to see and know that we are trying to be vigilant, we want to see what's out there, and then not just wait for the regulations to do so. Most people understand this, they applaud the efforts, and we move on. Once in a while, you're going to get somebody who takes things out of context. I will not guess what the motives are, but when they do that and then don't tell you the full story, it is difficult and it is scary for the public.
So you think the idea that they found 14 chemicals that exceeded state and federal health guidelines? Wrong. It also found 30 pollutant chemicals in the water.
Right. And here's the reason. We look for more chemicals, we look for them at lower levels, and we look for them more frequently. That's not done across the nation, that's not done across the state. So to be dinged for being vigilant, to be dinged for being transparent is the wrong, it's not fair.
So you're basically saying because you test so much,
absolutely,
they're able to find. In other words, if you only tested once every so often, they wouldn't be able to say that.
Right, and let me add,
that's a very confusing logic.
And then, Mr. Alacon will be our next speaker after that, if you could press your button again.
It was not our logic, okay? But I do want to assure you that everything we find, one of the first things we do, because it's not regulated yet, we give it to the regulators and say, what do you think about this? Because you don't have regulations yet. Is it within norm? Is it safe?
But if they don't have regulations...
Just having the regulations is the end point. They do a lot of work well before the regulations are established to look at the science, look at the health effects.
Okay.
So we work with them.
I'll push my button again.
Mr. Alacon, Mr. Labange, and Mr. Cardenas are next.
Do you drink our water?
I do.
Do you drink bottled water?
No.
Which is better?
Sorry?
Which is better?
Which is better? Tap water is.
Okay. Why don't we sell it?
We are selling tap water. Hopefully we can get more money for our rates.
No, but why don't we bottle it and sell it?
We
sell LA water.
It is LA water. Unfortunately, over the last 5 years, we have learned more and more about plastics. And I am a proponent of not trying to encourage more bottle disposal with plastics.
Notwithstanding that, why don't we sell it? I mean, if everybody else is buying it, using it, I didn't say you had to put it in plastic bottles. Why don't we just... what department would be responsible for selling water if we could bottle it? We can't? Why can't we? We wouldn't be competitive with the private sector. They couldn't compete with us. I think we should look at the feasibility of establishing the sales of bottled water, because the problem is that people are now just not drinking tap water. They're drinking bottled water on the norm. In fact, as I look around the Horseshoe, I see several council members drinking bottled water. And I'm drinking orange juice, but my colleagues, and it's not a problem. But I'm just saying, it's a psychological thing, and if it is good enough to drink, then I think there would be a very positive message if we bottled it, and people would equate it. Are you saying it's as good as any bottled water out there?
It is good or better. But I'll give you a caveat to this. We, in our city, unfortunately, also have some old buildings. We have some poor housing. And sometimes those structures have bad plumbing. So no matter how hard we try and get the best water out there to the curb, sometimes, unfortunately, that water gets degraded in that plumbing. So when a person comes to me and says, you know, how safe is this water? And I explain to them, I said, you know, if you're drinking it right from a plant or drinking it right from the curb, I would say, go ahead and do it, don't waste a dime. But if you are having rusty water, you're having some chalk-like substances in your water that are from the hot water heater and etc., go ahead and put a little filter, but don't spend thousands of dollars behind this, because there are all sorts of charlatans out there selling you very expensive little treatment devices that they don't need.
Well, again, I think in this budget crisis, we ought to explore the feasibility of selling our water with the dual purpose of generating some income for the city of Los Angeles, at the same time sending a positive message about the water that is in our drinking water system.
Thank you, sir. We'll try to put some creative.
I will be investigating that briefly, and hopefully we'll be introducing a motion to that effect very shortly.
Thank you, and we'll get you a case of that LA's Best in the meantime. Mr. Labange,
Dr.
Cardenas, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you. You're one of the great employees at Water and Power, because you really work hard. And Mr. Alarcon, I have already introduced a motion on that issue. It does take a charter change, but we could reintroduce it. But there is an issue that there's, I've told, 76 billion plastic bottles in the United States, and only about 18 billion get recycled. So this is a challenge. And recently I was at the Department of Water and Power, and they had an event, and it was all water that was there in a cooler of DWP water. I was at MWD, and they had great water too. And you mentioned a point about the quality of our infrastructure, whether it's in the streets under Mr. Melanowski's duty to keep those pipes going, or whether it's in our private homes. Explain the home connection. Our water runs from our system, through our reservoirs, through our tanks, down our streets, to our home connection. It's from there, it goes into the house. What do you find in your studies? What type of challenges there are in homes from the 40s, 50s, 60s, etc.?
Usually, thank you for the question, Councilperson Labange. Usually the plumbing in the home imparts rust. Rust is one of the most common complaints we get about the water quality, and then when we explore it, we find out that it is old plumbing in the homes. The other part that's also common has to do with hot water heater tanks if they're not maintained properly. Now, for energy reasons, sometimes people have the heaters go lower in certain times of the year and higher temperatures at other times of the year. They reset it. But if your hot water heater is older, you develop a ring of just calcium deposits on the inside of the heater. Over time, those deposits come off and they get into your plumbing. People see these little white particles. They are calcium salts, but they look terrible, and sometimes they're brown if there's rust too. So they think, oh my gosh, you're serving dirt to us. But it's all being generated in the homes usually.
Can a filter at let's say, the faucet make a difference?
Absolutely.
And less costly than tearing up the whole house for their plumbing?
Right. A simple filter, a physical filter, can take care of most of the problems that people are struggling with.
Would the Department of Water and Power ever look at that? Because we're an aged city now. We did talk about filtration in some of our reservoirs and our tanks. We do have the Sylmar facility, which is a major filtration, but we never talk about home filtration system.
We do. We did an annual report in one of our communications with all our customers. We had shared information and we said, would you like to know more about these filters so that you don't go around spending a lot of money? And they said yes.
Right. And last question, because you're a doctor, not a medical doctor, but you're a doctor. When I was born, were there chemicals in my body? As a natural, there's chemicals in all human life.
Yes.
So there's chemicals in water. So some of those chemicals are not the right chemicals, which is our challenge to try to extract them, but there's chemicals in all parts of water. And what are the two things you need in life to survive?
Air and water. Food and water.
Well, you need water, because water brings everything, and then you need relations. And we have a good relations with water and power. The better the water, the stronger the people.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Wesson?
Thank you.
Recognize Mr. Wesson, please.
Wake up, wake up. Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to be responsible for stopping the work on the council today, but I was excused 15 minutes ago, and I will be leaving. But what I wanted to say to the members that are here is that we have provided a bunch of Charmette's favorite foods there behind the chamber, and so lunch is on Charmette for every member of the Los Angeles City Council, and whatever is left, the staff can take advantage of. Now Zion, my dear friend Dennis, said he didn't get the notice, but today at noon in the Rotunda, we will be having a memorial celebration in Charmette's honor. You'll see a lot of our staff members. We are walking around with what I believe is called a barong, which is a traditional Filipino style of dress, and we're doing this in Charmette's honor so that we can get a group picture, send it back to her mother, because the mother and the family, Charmette never talked about really her work, because she didn't want her family members to think that she was bragging. So now we want to brag on her behalf. So with that, continue the debate, knowing that within the next minute or so, I will slip out. And also, please take advantage of all of the food. I think we have a variety of food in the back, and I would like for everybody to gain a pound.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson. We'll be joining there as quickly as people wrap up this meeting in here. Thank you very, very much, and our deepest condolences again to you and the entire staff. Mr. Cardenas is next, then Mr. Rosendahl and Ms. Hahn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson, for providing this celebration for all of us. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. And thank you for wearing an undershirt. Those shirts are see-through. Thank you very much. Charmette had a heck of a sense of humor. She's tough, too. What's your name again, sir?
Pankaj Parekh.
Okay. And what's your title?
I'm the Director for Water Quality.
And what degrees do you have?
I have a bachelor's in medical sciences, a master's in public health, and a doctorate in environmental science and engineering.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for taking your title seriously and also being so frank with the council, because I think that the root of this whole discussion is the fact that we choose to test our water and to expose ourselves to the truth to a higher degree and a higher standard than is required. Isn't that the case?
That is, sir.
Okay. Now, the reason why most governments don't do that is because they don't do it, and also private industry, is because they are being political and they're not being responsible. I want to thank you for assisting us as a city and a provider of water for being responsible beyond the standards that perhaps society is asking us to be. That's a very difficult thing to do, because once we do that, aren't we exposing ourselves to more criticism than otherwise if we just tested to the basic standard that is required?
Absolutely, sir.
And then when we receive that criticism, doesn't it look sometimes as though our water is worse than, say, a neighboring constituent's water because they're testing at a much lower level?
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't mean that, in fact, that their water is better than ours, does it?
Not at all.
Okay. Thank you for being succinct in your answers, because I think it is a yes or no answer pretty much on most of my questions.
Yes.
And one of the things, as an engineer myself, I can really appreciate your willingness to stay on point and not try to say what we want to hear. It's very hard for people to do, especially when somehow, some way, your job is subjected by the decisions that are made by the people that might not like your answers. So I just want to emphatically say I really do appreciate that. And the fact that you hold science degrees, that really makes me feel good too, because I have one too. Not as lofty as yours, but I have one, and it's very, very hard to deal with the facts when you're talking to politicians. So thank you so much. In addition to that, I'd like to say as well to my colleague, Councilmember Alarcon and to Tom LaBonge or anybody who would like to look into bottling our wonderful water, our very good water, is that perhaps, and I'm being serious, we should go beyond that because of the billions of bottles that are out there throughout this country that don't need to be there. Maybe the Department of Water and Power can kill two birds with one stone by actually providing reusable containers and encouraging our Angelinos to take their tap water and fill it up with tap water that they're getting for how many cents a gallon? How many pennies a gallon? Isn't it like 3-4 cents or something like that?
Oh, no. It's less than half a cent.
Less than half a cent for a gallon.
Yes.
So it's one tiny, tiny fraction of a cent to fill a reusable container instead of, this is LA's best, but to refill a usable container right here that on average might cost 99 cents, $1.50, $2. Right? So the bottom line is perhaps what we should do is study the fact that looking at the benefit of reminding our constituents that they may be getting ripped off by these hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars of filters on their home, and also they're probably getting ripped off and hurting the environment by using so many of these bottles. So perhaps we should move past looking at bottling LA's DWP water and be much more responsible and actually move toward providing reusable containers, and in using those reusable containers and distributing them, we're educating the public to the truth, not to the politics, not to convenience, but to the truth. Would you support that kind of endeavor? Or would you recommend that?
I definitely recommend that path. There are lots of institutions that are beginning to do that, and we are trying to be supportive. I think right away we would like to engage in beginning to inform the public just what you said, about just what you said.
Who's the biggest water and power district in the country?
If I can ask you to press your button again.
So, could you answer that question? Who's the biggest water and power district in the country?
We're about a minute and a
We
half
are the
over, Mr.
biggest
Curtis.
public water utility.
Thank you very much.
We have two other speakers, Mr. Rosendahl and Ms. Hahn. Colleagues, we have 5 other items. Following this, I just want to check in with folks as we finish this, whether people wanted to take a half-hour recess to join the memorial and come back, or whether we wanted to try to knock this out. It could be as little as 5 minutes work, depending on council members.
You just move number 6 to next week.
I know, they can't stop talking.
Mr. Rosendahl is our next speaker.
I'll be rather quick on this for that very reason. Two things I want to say is, this water comes because we have filtered upstairs a tank that you take the water from. That's what I basically drink from, okay? Occasionally, I drink from this. But the problem with this is a plastic bottle that is a big problem. I thought I was being cool environmentally to keep my plastic bottles and refill them with stuff, and then I find out that the temperature and there might be something in this. So even this ain't a good idea. And I'll be honestly and candid with you, I do get Sparkletts water by the bottle. And the reason is it smells the water coming out of my pipe. And I'm not too sure if it's the infrastructure in the street or if it's the piping in my house. It's somewhere within that context. But I think we all need, and I would like you to think about this, sending out a DWP notice to absolutely everybody to buy that filtering system or explain how it works so people can get that and put it on their faucets. Then we're totally cool that every water that comes out of there won't have a lot of those ingredients. Does that work, that filter system, to do that?
So it does, and I thank you for the opportunity. Just to clarify one issue, that smell issue, chlorine. It's a disinfectant. Obviously, most people don't like the smell of chlorine in their water. When they complain about it, to me, it's a reflection of our good work, because I want to protect the drop of water until it comes out of that kitchen tap. And the only assurance I have that it is safe is to make sure that that disinfectant is still in it. Now, having said that, to get rid of chlorine, you don't need anything fancy. If you leave it, whether it's just a plain glass of water from the tap, you leave it outside in the kitchen for 5 minutes, the chlorine smell will dissipate. You put it in the refrigerator, it's going to be gone, and your water is going to be... I challenge you to know the distinction between that water and any bottled water that you have.
And what about the filter system?
The filter systems, we can look into that. I usually like to know what complaints people have, whether it's color, whether it's the chlorine smell, and stuff. There are different systems there, and we'll develop some information without labeling some particular person's product, and we'll give some generic information that might be of great use to our public.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hahn is our last speaker.
No, this is great. What's our policy, and I don't know if that's a windy question, but what's our policy when we get something like that makes the front page of the papers? It's a report that a lot of people think is scientific, it's credible. Do we just think, oh, everybody's going to know the truth, or does the department have an aggressive response so that all of our ratepayers, all of the folks that drink our water know, in fact, that we said, I mean, that was in December. By the time it winds its way through our council process, it's now, almost March. So, Wendy, do we have a policy where the department responds to things like that and says this was taken out of context? We write, somebody from the department maybe writes an op-ed piece, or we have a way to communicate back to the public, but specifically to our water drinkers.
Wendy Yancey, Water and Power, and yes, actually we do. I think this one, though, the motion came out before the response, so it...
Did we have a response on this?
Yes.
Oh, and it came out?
Yes.
And how was it circulated?
We sent it to the newspaper, and they published it a couple of days later. But like you said, the damage was done in some ways.
Well, I mean, I think the damage is done, but I think there's always an opportunity for us to respond.
Yes.
Was there something that we sent to our customers?
We did an email blast to our neighborhood council representatives and then the newspapers. So
what about to our customers?
No, we have now, I have developed a policy on the water quality side part, is to have on our website immediate responses on anything like this that comes up.
Good.
As a start.
And you did on
Yes.
this immediately. Yeah, I just think that's the second piece of this, is certainly we want to question you and find out what this report meant, but I think the other part of this is making sure that we have a quick, solid response to this misinformation so that people are, again, our goal is not that they just feel safe, that they are safe drinking our water, and we want to make sure they have the information that gives them that level of assurance that the water is safe.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if we can, this is a receive and file? Or is this action?
There's a vote required.
Okay, please open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Ms. Hahn has indicated 22. She has had her questions answered. If we can move that. Item 22. Please open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. 24, Mr. Labange has circulated a amending motion. We'll accept that as friendly. If nobody else wishes to be heard on 24, will you please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
We have 3 continuations. Number 6, if we can continue that till the 2nd, that is Tuesday of March, without objection. Item 29, if we can continue that till Monday, that is the 1st of March. And item 42 till the 5th, that's 1 week, next Friday, without objection on those. We need to reconsider 2 items, and then we have 28 left. If we can reconsider 39, please. Please open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
There's been an amending motion submitted. If there's no objection, that will be accepted as friendly. If we can please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
43, if we can please reconsider. There's a card from the public on 43. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Item 43. This item is on back taxes to DTG operations.
This is a closed session item, correct, Mr. President? And the particulars of this case weren't discussed in council chambers. And the particulars of the case weren't discussed in open committee meetings. And so the city attorneys or any attorney didn't have to offer a suggestion to go into closed hearings. And what's offered in the open session would be the settlement that it's considered in closed hearings. But the discussion, again, would be heard in closed session, not in the chambers. I'm bringing this up to discuss some kind of legal strategies because in the future, please hold my time because I believe the city attorney wants to interrupt me.
Sir, nobody's been interrupting if you'd like to continue.
Okay. The city attorney has filed a billboard lawsuit. And that might end up in closed session.
I'm sorry, sir, we're off topic. That's good for general public comment if you want to ask our general approach, but if we'd like comments on the specific case here. If you don't have comments on the
And
specific case,
I'm
I'll have to find that out of order and suggest you bring that up at your next general public comment, okay?
I'm trying to suggest this through legal strategies.
I'm sorry, sir, that's, with all due respect, out of order. That's not what's before us. Mr. Alarcon, did you want to suggest anything? Okay. Thank you. That'll close public comment then for this item. Mr. Zine, did you want to be heard on this?
On 28.
Oh, on 28. Okay. Let's prepare the roll on 43 and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you very much. That is reapproved. And if we can take up item, sorry, we have a special one just before that, Mr. Zine, real quick. On the findings, Mr. City Attorney, special one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the posting of today's agenda, heavy rains have been forecast for this weekend. Immediate action is required to transfer funds to accelerate repairs of Mulholland Drive near Coldwater Canyon, which sustained damage during the February 7th storm. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Okay. If nobody wishes to be heard on the findings, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on the findings and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is now before us. If we can please open the roll and a vote of the item. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. We'll send that forthwith for you, Mr. Krikorian, on that item. If we can go now to item number 28. Mr. Zine. That was called special for you. And then Mr. Alarcon.
Yeah, thank you. On number 28, we have a substitute on item 28 signed by me and the Chair of Housing, Mr. Wesson, so we would request that this be approved. The substitute on number 28, please.
Okay. We do have cards from the public on 28. I'd like to ask Larry Gross to come forward. Has this had a public hearing or not?
This
Had a hearing in personnel
Okay.
committee.
Sorry, just before we talk, is there a motion to reopen the public hearing on this?
Well, I'm not going to reopen the public hearing. We already heard it in personnel.
Okay, as a substitute motion, why don't you come forward? We'll do a minute, if that's all right, Mr. Gross? Can we do a minute?
Minute, huh?
If you want to, let me know, but...
Well, minutes better than none.
Okay,
I'd rather take
we can do
care of
two. Go ahead. We'll set on 2 minutes if you want.
Okay, Larry Gross, Coalition for Economic Survival. We oppose the substitute motion and strongly urge 28B be adopted, the Housing Committee report. REAP is essential to the city's effective war on slum housing. And given that the city attorney has already reported that there's no conflict of interest with the existing groups, there's no reason not to adopt 28B. The staff report documents these contracts are the most cost-effective way of providing these vital services with no reduction in services and with no increase in fees to landlords or tenants. Each meeting, you deal with REAP removals. On today's agenda, you have 12 such buildings on the agenda. You want assurances that these buildings are truly repaired and deserve to be removed from REAP. We're the ones who help provide you with those assurances. And that's why we urge you strongly to adopt the recommendations of the Housing Committee, the Housing Department, the CAO, and the Mayor by doing so by adopting 28B, the HCED report. Thank you so much.
Mr. Brent Terrell. Mr. Brent Terrell. Following Mr. Terrell will be Steve Arredondo. Are you here? Okay, you're next.
Thank you. My name is Brett Terrell. I'm the Director of Advocacy with the Inner City Law Center, and we also urge that 28B be accepted. We provide a great value to the city in our REAP outreach. We do the outreach not just to the tenants, but also to the landlords. And as already been stated by Larry Gross, the city attorney has confirmed on the issue of the potential conflict of interest. We help the landlords get access to the units for the repairs. We talk to the tenants about all the issues involved. We work evenings and weekends. We have that flexibility that we can provide to this contract, and we urge that 28B be accepted. Thank you.
Steve Arredondo. And then Helen Hong.
Thank you. Steve Arredondo, Supervising Attorney with the Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice. We urge the Council to adopt item 28B. The report back to the Council is clear and unequivocal that it would cost the Housing Department considerably more to do the work that the REAP contractors do, outreach workers do. As Councilmember Park stated in the last Personnel Committee, no matter how the city tries to do the work, it cannot be done to match the savings that the outreach contractors provide to the city. And in fact, were the city to absorb the outreach contract work, it would not result in any jobs saved because such an extensive increase that the city would have to take up would actually lead to jobs being cut in some other point within the Housing Department. With respect to the issue of the conflict of interest, the city attorney's report back found no conflict of interest and recommended safeguards to avoid the appearance of the conflict of interest. All the concerns raised in the Housing and Community Economic Development Committee have been addressed. All the concerns raised in the Personnel Committee have been addressed. Therefore, the only thing left to do is adopt 28B. Thank you.
Ms. Hong? Following Ms. Hong will be Mr. Jose Garcia.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen Hong. I'm with the Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice located in Boyle Heights. I'm a constituent of Councilman Zine, and I respectfully ask that the Council adopt 28B as submitted originally under the Housing Community Economic Development Committee report. Based on the Council's request, the LA Housing Department submitted a report with the same recommendations on November 11th, 2009, more than 3 months ago. The report said basically that Housing Department cannot do this work. We do it cheaper and more cost effectively and with a proven track record. After the personnel, it was shifted to personnel. Personnel asked for a conflict of interest report from the city attorney, which it just had released, so that there is no conflict. Thus, there is no reason to make an amendment now, and we ask that the Council adopt 28B as originally submitted. Thank you.
Mr. Garcia? And then Mr. Calvo?
Jose Garcia, with a director with Inquilinos Unidos, one of the contracting agencies. We also want council to adopt 28B. Aside from outreach, our role is to work alongside inspectors with tenants and with owners to facilitate compliance and move cases efficiently into council for removal from the program. We save the city and property owners time and money by ensuring a property is ready for final inspection by LAHD inspectors. We review repairs and look for instances where it is blatantly apparent that there has been no attempt to comply. Inspectors assess the finer points of a repair and ensure there is compliance with standards set forth by LAHD. Any inconsistencies between findings of a contractor and inspector are then referred to a senior inspector. Contractors do not have the power to hold off removal from a property from REAP, as LAHD can disregard our findings at any time. Our work provides a crucial layer of checks and balances prior to a property coming before council for removal. There is no interference or duplication as we provide other support services as well, and all contractors have years of experience having gone through an extensive and competitive RFP process. We follow a strict protocol and spend time with owners and managers to make sure they understand the process and ensure neutrality and equity between owners and the tenants.
I only see 6 members on the floor. I'd like to call for a roll call, please.
All right, go ahead.
Given the violations, but understand that this is an enforcement program and owners are in the...
That's immediate action.
We have to stop his clock, and he was almost done. Can we let him just finish?
But if there's no quorum, his point is not being made. I would like to have a roll call.
There are 11 people on the docket.
I would like to call
I
for
will
a roll
call.
call.
Mr. Alarcon, please let the man speak for his 42 seconds, and then I will ask the clerk.
Can I ask the city attorney for an opinion?
There actually should be a roll call vote if one's
Fine, go ahead
requested.
and give a roll call.
Alarcon.
Here.
Cardenas.
I am present.
Han.
Is Ms. Han in the back? She's right here. Ms. Han is here.
Koretz. Is he here?
Does anyone know where Mr. Koretz is?
Go to the bathroom.
Check the restrooms.
Krikorian.
Here.
Labange.
Here.
Parks.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
Rosendahl.
Here.
Zine.
Here.
And Garcetti.
Here.
We have 10 members
10
present.
people on the floor.
Confirmed.
All right. Can we start his clock again, please? Go ahead.
Thank you. please understand that this is an enforcement program and owners are in the REAP due to repeated disregard of citations by the Los Angeles Housing Department. It is reserved for that small percentage of property owners who have been given every opportunity at compliance yet have not. The economy has also made it necessary to deal with a number of foreclosed apartments owned by banks that are not making repairs and tenants who have no idea how to deal with this process. Furthermore, any cuts to the smaller specialized contracts will mean a lessening of services, creating more need and costing the city much more than it will save. We urge the council to adopt 28B. Thank you.
Mr. Calvo, and then Betsy Handler. Betsy Handler is our last speaker.
Thank you. Angel Calvo with Engineers and Architects Association. I'm here at the request of the employees at Housing that we represent. They have asked us to come and speak against 28B. Contrary to what a lot of the comments made here, the employees at the Housing Department feel that they can actually do this work, that there is no need to contract it out or actually do these amendments. There would be no need to hire more employees, so therefore there would be no additional cost. In addition, they do feel that there is a conflict of interest contrary to whatever the report is from the City Attorney's Office, and we ask that the original 28B not be approved. Thank you.
Ms. Handler.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Betsy Handler. I'm the Director of Legal Services at Inner City Law Center. We are one of the REAP contractors, although I personally don't do a great deal of REAP work. I'm a litigator. I sue the slumlords who are so recalcitrant that they've been in REAP for years. But I'm intimately familiar with the program, and I urge you to adopt 28B because, in fact, the people who do the REAP outreach work have a skill set that is unique to them. They are flexible in their hours. They go to buildings on weekends. They go to buildings in the evening because so many of our clients work during the day. They have language skills. They have an intimate knowledge of the statute and the requirement. We also work closely with landlords. We inform them of the law and procedures and where they can get help for their problems. We have been known to cause our clients or the tenants to clean up their acts, as it were, if we find that they are not behaving in an appropriate manner. And the city attorney, I think, has vindicated our work by showing that there is no conflict of interest. I don't believe that the housing personnel, as good as they are, could do the kind of work that our people are doing, the hours that our people do it, without an additional heavy burden in money and personnel to the housing department, which itself, I understand, is in favor of maintaining the contracts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That marks the end of our public speakers. Mr. Parks?
Mr. Zine's going to explain it.
Okay, Mr. Alarcon is ahead of Mr. Zine. Mr. Alarcon.
This is not discontinuing any reprogram or any outside contracts. Mr. Wesson and I both did the substitute item 28. It simply continues the contracts, continues them through June 2010. They will receive the compensation. They'll continue exactly what they're doing. We want the housing department to adopt the city attorney's recommendations regarding the process and procedures as reflected in the city attorney's report, and to report back in 3 months with the status and appropriate recommendations. The city attorney believes there needs to be some additional language to the contracts. The contracts will continue. Nothing will change. No dollars will change from what they're currently receiving on the reprogram. So I've listened to the comments. We're not asking to stop the program. All we're saying is continue it. The city attorney's coming back. We want them to come back. And then we're going to make whatever modifications, but not discontinue the program. That's all we're asking for. And again, Mr. Wesson has seconded this motion. We think this is in the best interest of the city of Los Angeles to keep it fair and to keep it honest and to keep the integrity in the reprogram. But the city attorney did a 6-page report explaining some of the issues that they have concerns about. This will give the opportunity to correct those. the contracts will continue. So they're not going to disrupt the REAP program. So we request an aye vote on substitute 28.
Mr. Alarcon.
Well, this is, I think the reason I rise is to ensure that that we maintain the integrity of the REAP program. I'm concerned that there are discussions to change the program in such a way that it would reduce the ability for the REAP program to provide as much in the way of services as they've been providing. And but I find myself in a difficult position when the chairs of both committees have agreed, and I was prepared to support 28B because I think we need to send a loud message that we're going to continue with our, notwithstanding all the crisis in the city, we're going to continue with our vigilance in the REAP program to ensure that landlords are not violating their responsibilities to take care of their tenants. I'm going to have to defer to the chairs on this substitute motion, but I have to tell you, we have to remain vigilant on this issue. We have to be mindful that in no way, shape, or form do we want to reduce the level of service. There is an economy of scale that is gained by going to the community with these services in terms of community-based organizations. This is a unique situation, and while I always stand with city employees, there are private contracting services on occasion that can be improved by improve upon the services that can be rendered by city employees. For me, the money is not the critical issue, it's the quality of service. But also in this case, since the community-based organizations have been the advocates for the tenants, I'm sensitive that they remain the providers of service, because they will be the ones that I feel will be the most strong advocates to protect the tenants. So I'm going to defer to you and support the motion, but we will continue to monitor this, and I fully expect that the REAP program will continue for the next several years with the full complement of capabilities that we have seen in the last several years.
Thank you, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Koretz?
Yeah, I partly want to clarify exactly what this does and what the intent of it is. In committee, we heard that this program is both considerably more cost-effective when done by the contractors that are doing it, and effective not only in advocating for tenants, but also in educating landlords. So as it is, it seems like it's a win-win for everybody. There was a question of potential conflicts, and I assume this motion is designed to give us some time to clarify all those issues, but at the same time not to move away from the contract itself and its intentions, but both to give us a period of time to clear up all those issues and then presumably move forward with the contract and its intentions as it stands. So, Councilmember Zine, is that essentially what we're getting at here?
That's exactly the issue. Nothing's going to change. We're not going to support slumlords in the city of Los Angeles. So this gives us time for them to continue the program, continue it in place, and gives the city attorney, the housing department, the opportunity to make sure that the language is specific, to make sure that we conform so there are no conflicts, as mentioned in committee. It's not going to hurt the program. What we're going to do is clarify to make sure there is no lawsuits that come about, and there have been lawsuits come about because there's some ambiguous language. We want to clear that up. But there's no intention to eliminate REAP in the city of Los Angeles or to support slumlords. This is basically technical. Again, they continue in place exactly what they're doing.
Okay,
so we request your aye vote on this.
With that, I would say I agree with Mr. Alarcon. I was prepared to vote for a different motion, but this seems like it will strengthen what our intentions are in terms of this rather than weaken them, and remove the liability, clarify any questions. And so on that basis, I will vote aye on this measure.
All right, thank you. Let's open the roll on this. First, we vote on the whether or not to substitute. Let's open the roll on that. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
And then next, we vote on the actual substitute motion. Please open the roll on that. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
All right, thank you. No further items on the agenda?
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those motions are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Wesson requests to be excused on Monday, March 1st for city business. Motion is required.
That'll be without objection, as long as that doesn't fall within the period, okay, that we're not going into recess.
Also, Councilmember Labange requests to leave at 12:30 on Monday, March 1st, and also excuse Tuesday, March 9th and 16th, and Wednesday, March 17th, all for city business. This meets council policy.
Now, again, the leadership issued a letter today. Are those two later dates within that time frame or not?
They are within that time frame.
Okay, why don't we excuse on the first two, and I'll discuss the second two dates with him, because we just issued a letter on the fact that we're going to continue to conduct council, and we are not going to have a recess during that period. And only essential members and staff will be attending legal cities. Otherwise, business will be conducted as usual. Next item.
Councilmember Rosendahl requests to leave at 11:30 on Friday, March 5th for city business. This meets council policy.
Without objection?
The desk is clear.
All right, members, any announcements? Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. It's with great pleasure and sadness that I mention that Cristina Aguilera has served my office for over 4 years, and she's done a difficult task of scheduling my schedule for me, which is probably the toughest job for anybody to do, for any elected official. And you know that saying, stand by your man. Well, Cristina Aguilera is now Cristina Aguilera Ramos. She got married on New Year's Eve. And her and her husband are career military people, and they decided it's best that their family be together, not here in Los Angeles, but in Las Vegas. So we all have a place to crash in Las Vegas. And again, Cristina Aguilera has been serving my office for over 4 years. She's been in the military over 20, right? 22 years, and she's been serving the country and our community very well, and she has a tremendous sense of humor. I bet you if I asked her what it's like to work for me for such a long time, she'd say it was like probably about a minute. It went by like a minute with her head underwater. It felt like a decade, exactly. But again, I just wanted to take this opportunity to let the people of Los Angeles know that you've been served very, very well by Cristina Aguilera, now Cristina Aguilera Ramos, and we're going to miss her dearly, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to represent her and present her with this resolution.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you, Councilman.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Members, any other, Mr. Parks?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, we'd like to make a couple of announcements of important events coming up this week. First of all, this weekend, the annual African American Men Health and Empowerment Summit will be held on Saturday, February 27th from 8 to 3 at the Convention Center, and so this is an annual event put on by Dr. Relaford. Also, we'd like to invite the community to the 2010 LADWP Science Bowl is held on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 6 at John Farrar Building on North Hope. And also, just on an issue dealing with the budget, Alliance of Neighborhood Councils will be holding a meeting regarding the city's budget at the Rolling Hills Prep High School Auditorium in San Pedro. And then the final one, we've been a lot of information about H1N1, and there'll be free H1N1 shots today at between 9:30 and 1 at LA City College, and tomorrow at West LA College between 10 and 2.
Any other announcements, members? Please rise. Mr. Garcetti? Okay. Rise for adjourning motions. Any adjourning motions? Adjourning motions. All right, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Colleagues, I ask that we adjourn in memory of a of a friend and somebody who had an impact on this city, this world, and in these chambers. Louisa Benson Craig passed away on Friday, February 2nd, 2010, after battling ovarian cancer. Her life story is something that would be unbelievable if you did not realize that it was real. She was born in Burma to a Sephardic Jew from India and a mother who was Karen, which is the largest ethnic minority in Burma. She won a number of Miss Burma titles, married a dashing young colonel from the Karen army that was fighting against the Japanese in World War II, and the Karen were promised by the British their own independent country along the Thai-Burma border, which was never realized. After independence, the Karen then took up armed resistance against the Burmese central government, and pregnant with his child, she learned that her husband, the colonel who almost overthrew the government, came within literally about 5 feet of a coup, had been killed. She, at the age, I think, of 18 or 19, took control of his troops on elephant back, becoming, I think, herself a lieutenant colonel in the Karen Army, commander of the Karen's Army's 5th Brigade. Her first husband, Brigadier General Lin Tin, who I mentioned before, after she assumed leadership of his troops, she left Burma and came to the United States. She went to Tufts University and met Glenn Craig, an American, here. And in 1967, they went on to raise their children here in Los Angeles. She completed graduate schools at Columbia University, but her life influenced mine in this way, that her daughter and I were very close and are very close, and I got to know about the struggles for human rights in Burma, and as a result spent some time living in Burma through what Louisa had connected us with. She's known here in council chambers because she was the only named plaintiff in the internationally groundbreaking lawsuit against Unocal in their efforts to try to get Unocal to withdraw from Burma in supporting what is known as one of the 2 or 3 most brutal regimes anywhere on the face of the earth. She assumed diplomatic duties in Washington, D.C. and the United Nations, representing First Peoples throughout the world, the Karen National Union and Ethnic Nationalities Council. She was co-founder of the Los Angeles-based Burma Forum, and she served on the boards of several organizations to bring democracy and education to Burma, including the U.S. Campaign for Burma. She's survived by her incredible husband, who gave me once a summer job working on photovoltaic writing about solar energy, which started me down that path, Glenn Craig. But her daughters, Charmaine, my dear friend, her sister Colleen, son Bradford. And just in closing, Louisa was one of those people who embodied the Karen people, who not a lot of people have heard of. But there's many that live in the Central Valley and many in Los Angeles. It's one of those ethnic groups that in LA probably there's a bigger population of anywhere outside of Thailand and Burma. She was so humble, so sweet, so proud, and so strong. And Aung San Suu Kyi is a Burmese woman that a lot of people know about, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. In my mind, Louisa, for the Karen, was just as strong and just as important a woman in trying to bring democracy to her people. She will be dearly missed by her loved ones, by her family, by this community, and by the world. Louisa Benson Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. Mr. Zine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 adjourning motions. Rhoda Arlene Schwartz Brandt, born August 12, 1933, New York. Moved to California, made 3rd Council District her home for the last 40 years. Active member and leader in the community. Formed part of numerous organizations, including TOPS, Take Off, Pound Sensibly. Na'amat, where she focused on reading out to school children in Israel, and for the last 5 years, the Red Hat Society. Was an avid mahjong player, played mahjong, enjoyed crossword puzzles, reading, travel, dining out, watching Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, but most importantly, being surrounded by family and friends. Passed away at the age of 76, survived by her loving husband, Alan, 3 children, Louis, David, Helen, 2 treasured grandchildren, Jennifer and Forrest. May she rest in peace. Rhoda Arlene Schwartz Brandt. My other attorney motion is for Patricia L. Bennett. Patricia was born in Ohio, graduated from Wesleyan College, Parkersburg Medical Center during World War II, one of few women in the medical field. Married Robert James Bennett in 53, married 48 years until his death in 2001. Pat was chief medical tech at Motion Picture Hospital Woodland Hills, sang bass for the Sweet Adeline's Choir, performed throughout the country, was an active member of the Presbyterian Church and sang in the choir. She will be missed and survived by relatives. May she rest in peace, Patricia L. Bennett.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? All right, thank you. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.